You, bye-bye. Okay.
All right. Stand by.
Sign language interpreter. For target.
Microphone is free. And whenever you're ready, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the Village of Ruidoso Village Council regular meeting, March 9th, 2021. It's 1 o'clock. We're at the Ruidoso Convention Center. This is still our temporary home. And we'll start with an invocation, a moment of silence, an invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll do the salute to the New Mexico flag. And I would like to ask Councilor Jackson if you would give us the invocation after the moment of silence. So please stand with me.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we ask you on this day to guide our eyes to see the truth, our ears to hear it, and most importantly, our mouths to speak it. We ask in these deliberations that you guide us and direct us. We also ask that in these deliberations that all those before us are mindful of the needs and wants of others. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. All right, we have to get some excitement in here. All right. Mr. Sena, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Crawford.
Here.
Councilor Jackson.
Here.
Councilor Coughlin.
Here.
Councilor Cornelius.
Here.
Councilor Lutterman.
Here.
Councilor Eby.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
All right. And Councilor Salas isn't feeling well. No COVID there, though. I'd like a motion with the approval of the agenda. And you might throw the caveat in there that we can move it around if need be.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as presented and give the chair the ability to move the items for discussion at will.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Sena.
Councilor Jackson.
Aye.
Councilor Lutterman.
Aye.
Councilor Eby.
Aye.
Councilor Cornelius.
Aye.
Councilor Coughlin.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move right on. So we'll start with our consent regular items. We have 9. Bear with me. Item number 1 is approval of the governing body minutes, February 9th, 2020, regular meeting, March 2nd, 2021, workshop meeting. Item number 2 is ratification of adoption of Resolution 2021-12, a resolution declaring an emergency in the Village of Ruidoso. Item number 3, adoption of Resolution 2021-15, a resolution approving the acquisition of real property, Lot 10, Unit 3, Adowas Resort Village, and containing .43 acres, more or less, located in the Village of Ruidoso, Lincoln County, New Mexico. Item number 4, approval of memorandum of agreement between Capitan Public Library and the Ruidoso Public Library to better provide services to the community. Item number 5 is approval of the first renewal agreement with Data Pros LLC for automated statement processing services solicited in IFB number 2020-009B. Excuse me. Number 6 is approval of second renewal agreement with Ye and Associates, Inc., for professional engineering services for dam improvements, compliance, and planning projects for the Grindstone and Alto Lake dams. Item number 7 is approval of the first 5-year renewal agreement, exercising the first of the 2 5-year renewal options with Lincoln County for municipal solid waste delivery to the Village of Ruidoso, Gavilan Canyon Solid Waste Transfer Station. Item number 8 is approval of application for the Law Enforcement Protection Funds, LEPF, for Class 1 municipalities and counties pursuant to Chapter 29, Article 13 NMSA 1978 for the July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2022 fiscal year in the amount of $32,000. Item number 9, request to schedule a public hearing on April 13th, 2021 for Ordinance 2021-01, an ordinance amending the Village of Ruidoso Municipal Code of Ordinances, Section 2-32A, an ordinance pertaining to the salary and compensation of the mayor and council for the Village of Ruidoso. And that concludes items 1 through 9. Any comment? Clarification? And just something on item number 2 was with the snowstorm that we had to, anytime there's a storm like that or anything that comes up, we try to track all expenses, so we do that through declaring an emergency. Okay, we'll need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move the consent regular items be approved as presented.
Second.
Any final discussion? None? Roll call, please.
Counselor Jackson.
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin.
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius.
Aye.
Counselor Lutterman.
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Public input. Now, this is limited to the first hour of the meeting. And in compliance with the Attorney General's Office mandate regarding the Open Meetings Act during COVID-19 state of emergency, the governing body will accept public input via email at clerk@ruidoso-nm.gov. Public comments must be submitted no later than 2 hours prior to the meeting and will be distributed to the governing body members for review. I don't think I have any. Mr. Clerk, do we have any?
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, the clerk's office did not receive any public input prior to the 11 o'clock deadline.
Okay, awesome. I don't really know that we had, but we'll move on to mayoral reports and presentations. And sometimes this is fun, and sometimes you hate to see some of the folks go, because we have some folks that are going to be retiring. But before we get there, we have another proclamation. And I thought Mayor Batten was a proclamation mayor, but it seems like it just comes with the job. Am I all right, Ron?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but he always did bring cake. Oh, and I forgot to tell everybody that we do have cake for it's Councilor Coughlin's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
And
And,
to your left.
oh yeah, well, I forgot. That's good. I appreciate that. And it's Councilman Lutterman's birthday also. Now, yours is today, and hers is on the 17th. Okay. And she's made it very clear that she is retired.
And I'm not.
And you're not. But I did see a picture with you with hair and a suit on,
Yeah.
and it was
Told you I used to
yeah.
have hair.
yeah, he looked like the little junior, what do you call that? The junior businessman, the intern. So anyway, you look good. So happy birthday, you and you.
I get to sign up for Medicare.
You got to sign up for Medicare?
Mayor Crawford,
Yes, sir.
and maybe after we do the employee recognitions, we can invite them to stay for some cake
Okay.
that cake for, a joint cake for the two counselors.
Okay, that sounds good. So anybody that's joining us here in the convention center and the other rooms, we'll have a break that you can come in and we'll get a piece of cake for everyone just to celebrate their birthdays real quick, and we do not blow on the candles anymore.
I would hope
So-
not.
Anyway, so today we have a proclamation is April 6th, 2021 is National Service Recognition Day. So whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central to how we meet our challenges, and whereas the nation's elected leaders are increasingly turning to national service and volunteerism as a cost-effective strategy to meet their needs, and whereas AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants addresses the most pressing challenges facing our communities, they educate students for the 21st century jobs, fight the opioid epidemic, respond to natural disasters, and support veterans and military families. And whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, and leadership abilities for those who serve. And whereas AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants serve in more than 45,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being. And whereas national service participants increase the impact of the organizations they serve, both through their direct service and by managing millions of additional volunteers. And whereas national service represents a unique public-private partnership that invests in community solutions and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars. And whereas national service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by making an intensive commitment to service and commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. And whereas the Corporation for National and Community Service shares a priority with local leaders nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities, and is joining with the National League of Cities, the National Association of Counties, and local leaders across the country for National Service Recognition Day on April 7th, 2020. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Lynn D. Crawford, Mayor of the Village of Ruidoso, do hereby proclaim April 7th, 2020 as National Service Recognition Day and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our community, to thank those who serve, and to find ways to give back to their communities. Proclaimed this 10th day of March 2020 in Ruidoso, New Mexico. All right, do we have a representative here?
That was last year's.
2021.
Yes,
Excuse me,
Mayor
it's
Crawford, members of the
2021.
council, this is Anthony Montes with the Village of Ruidoso Community Center.
Yes, sir.
We host the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program out of the Community Center that's been here since 1994. And we have over 170 volunteers that provide hours in Lincoln County in 15 different volunteer stations. The hours they serve per year meet over $600,000 worth of savings to our community. So recognizing these volunteers is a great thing that the Village of Ruidoso is doing. We have places like the Food Bank, Christian Services, also eco-servants that provide a lot of public service out there. Also the Meals on Wheels program. And yes, it's just great that we can actually thank these volunteers for all the service that they do provide our communities. Thank you all for doing that.
Thank you, Anthony. And I guess this includes the RSVP and all those guys too?
Yes, the retired and senior volunteers and also eco-servants is what we're recognizing here.
And we're very fortunate in this community. And I have two of them. So I guess we never gave you 2020s?
Actually, Mayor, members of the council, one of them was going for eco-servants and one was to the retired and senior volunteer program.
Okay, well, we need to double check the dates. Okay. All right, we're all good. We'll get these to you, Anthony. We appreciate your service and all those of the volunteers, because we are a very fortunate community that we do have so many volunteers for all the different aspects of the community. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Okay, next is I guess we're going to lose someone at the end of another one at the end of this month. And the drum roll, please, is for Gary Goss. And I think I saw him in the building. Could you come over here for just a minute, Gary? Gary is going to retire. He's the chief water plant operator. And for his years of service to the Village of Ruidoso is from June 25th, 2007 through March 31st, 2021. And I know he's been here through thick and thin. I remember when our water was a big issue around here, and it always is, but it's not scary like it was because of guys like Gary. And he's got the El Jefe with him. You going to come in, Randy? Randy Kane is the director of that department. Come on over. Would you like to say something, Randy?
Yeah, I would just like to say, since I've been here since August 1st, 2013, Gary has worked with me and he's been really a big team player and he's helped us out so much. We are definitely going to miss him and we're losing a big asset to the village of Ruidoso. And I don't blame him, time to go, but wish I was going with you.
Well, your wife's retired, so now you guys get to do what you want to do, but for all the time that you've been here, we appreciate everything that you've done. We've got a nice little plaque that's made here in Ruidoso. It just talks about your years of service that you have, that you can hang on your wall in your office or in your motorhome or in the back of your pickup. This is a nice little plaque that says, presents to Gary Goss, June 25th, 2007, March 31st, 2021, in appreciation of your years of hard work, dedicated service to the community and the village of Ruidoso. Enjoy your retirement. So thank you so much, and I'll shake your hand, and we appreciate it. We are going to miss you. I don't know what you're going to do. You better get started. Whatever the boss says. Yeah.
Now you have no excuses to not do what she says.
I appreciate it, guys. Do you have anything you want to say? All right. That it is possible. You do get to retire sometime. So congratulations. Enjoy it, your family, and everything. And again, we appreciate everything that you've done. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now we'll come on to item number 3. And it's just like, who was it that said he was a big asset? Randy? Well, this is just a big ass. This is presentation of our retirement plaque to Darren Hooker, Chief of Police, for years of service to the village of Ruidoso from October 14th, 2015 through March 31st, 2021. Come on up, Chief. And as we all know, it's a tough position he came into, so he had to sell everybody in the community, the businesses that were here, the council that was here at the time, and from continued on. But you've been a big asset. You've been very instrumental in moving us forward in the community. We appreciate all your service. We know it's trying times, especially through the COVID. You were there with us to help us make decisions through all that. So we're excited for you in your next step of life. We do have some plans for him. He doesn't know about it just yet, but I'll bring that on to him after the buzz of retirement wears off. But we have a nice little plaque that says, presented to Darren Hooker, October 14th, 2015 through March 31st, 2021, in appreciation of your years of hard work and dedicated service to the community and the village of Ruidoso. Enjoy your retirement. So we thank you. Appreciate you, buddy. And then we also have a nice little plaque. It's a wooden. We have folks here in town. They always do these, and they're always well received. So we give you these 2 little tokens to go with the many that you have on your walls. And I know he's just dying to say something. So yeah, that's one thing about him. He'll probably be mayor one day, or at least city councilman, or a lobbyist. One of those. So would you like to say something before you?
Mr. Mayor, you know, I know that I am kind of shy and it's known.
Yeah.
And,
well known.
Short on words, but no, simply put, it's been an excellent career. It's been the capstone to be here. I thank every one of you for your support to not only me, but my department. But it is time. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I don't have anything planned. So if anybody out there in YouTube land needs a retired chief to do something, let me know. But thank you all.
Thank you, buddy.
all very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. And happy birthday.
I need a towel setter helper.
Yeah, Kyle Setter, that's right.
Stick for some of that cake.
Yeah, I'm going. Thank you.
Got away from me.
Yeah, I did.
Well, there goes all the red-headed jokes, guys. So we're going to have to come up with some new material. And now then, the next portion we'll go into is, we started something this last year where we do just an introduction real quick with our new employees so that we can kind of get a look at who they are and they know who we are. And because there's nothing more embarrassing when you're running through the hall, walking through the offices, and you run into somebody and you don't know who they are. So we're going to start off with, and I'm sure I'm going to just butcher this name, and I believe it's Ardina Kiskaden. Did I get even close on that? She's our telecommunication officer. She started February 28th, 2021. Hello there, how are you?
Good.
We just wanted to bring you in so we could see who you are and hopefully that you have a long and prosperous time here at the Village of Ruidoso and that you enjoy your work. You're catching us in a moving stage where we're going to be moving you guys shortly, so we're always here for you. If there's anything we can do, do not hesitate to reach out, and we're looking forward to you having a long term here. So would you like to say anything? You don't have to.
No, I know Mr. Cornelius, and I love this community.
Are you from Ruidoso?
No, but I've been here for 4 years. I'm from the area, so I came up from Alberta.
Okay. So, well, good. Well, then you're like a local, so.
Welcome.
All right. Well, congratulations, and we hope you enjoy your time.
Mr. Cornelius, huh?
Mr. Cornelius. Next we have
I've never heard that before.
Amber Word. She is a community center coordinator. She was hired 3/8/2021, and she's familiar to some folks here. She's been at the village before, isn't that correct?
That is correct.
She's going to be over helping Mr. Anthony out there, and that's a very vital part over here, and I'm sure you already know that, but we're glad to have you back. Hopefully you're going to be here for a long time. Is there anything that you'd like to say, or?
I'm excited to be back.
Good.
Super excited to be back.
Awesome.
This has always been a big family to me, so thank you
Well,
for
good.
having me back.
Well, good, and hopefully it's very enjoyable and all things will be positive, we hope.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you very much. If you need us, we're here. Okay, Jeremiah Lowball is solid waste operator driver. Date of hire is 3/8/2021. Did I get it right, Jeremiah? Is it Lowball? Lowball, okay. All right, and he started March 8th, 2021. We just wanted to welcome you aboard to let you know who we are. And if you have any questions or anything that come up, feel free to get in touch with us. We're glad that you're here. Hopefully you have a long, prosperous relationship and that you enjoy the things that the village has to offer. So would you like to say anything?
I just thank everybody for the opportunity.
All right, you bet, buddy.
Are they waiting for your probation before you get the patches?
Oh, no, this is a different shirt.
He dressed up for you, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
Daniel Salazar, wastewater maintenance worker, 1. Date of hire is 3/8/2021.
Bunch of new ones.
Hey, man, let me see your face there. Do we recognize you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we sure should. It's good to see you again, yes. So he's kind of like one in the family that's been around town for a long time that I've known, so we're glad to have you, Daniel.
Thank you guys, thank you for the opportunity.
So is there anything you'd like to say to us?
Well, hopefully we'll be here around for a while, hopefully later on I'll be in this office again,
We-
saying goodbye.
Well, you're, in 20 years, well, you won't be saying it to me. I think you'll be saying goodbye to me, and then they'll be throwing dirt in my face before we get to that day. But you're in a great department over there, a very vital department, so you can learn a lot over there, and no telling where it'll take you. But if you have anything that comes up, feel free to knock on the door, and hopefully you enjoy your time here.
So far, so good, I appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much.
It's nice to see you.
All right, well, that's nice that we've got some good quality. We're only as good as the people that are doing everything that it takes to make this village turn. And believe me, it's a lot. So we appreciate those guys. Good job on whoever. I know Cheryl and those guys are doing the hiring and the different department heads. And so it's nice when we can attract good quality staff.
It's nice to see Ruidoso kids coming back to
Yes, it is.
work for
Like Salazar. Mm-hmm.
And Amber.
Yeah, Amber. Okay, we'll move on to boards and commission appointments. I had one, but I didn't get it in time, did I, Ron? On the Parks and Rec, I think it was. So I'll have to do that next month. Okay, so we don't have any because the mayor didn't get his paperwork in, I guess, on time. And I just flat forgot, really. Village manager's report, we'll go ahead and throw it over to Mr. Dodge.
Mayor and council, there was a report that we included in here. I think it's pretty comprehensive. I'm going to have a few, the directors just come in and present. And, one of the things we wanted to, I wanted Rodney to kind of talk about is the reopening of the community center. And then there's a couple other items that he wants to discuss in addition to this upcoming weekend or next weekend. We're going to be going to a reservation process at Grindstone Lake as well. So Rodney, you want to cover some of those issues?
Let's see, if I get out of order here, I apologize. So with the community center, what our plans are is to try to work with the previous instructors for all the exercise classes and to try to welcome them back into the center to provide those for the community, as well as offering the food service program, which will be the Friday breakfast held on a weekly basis. And that particular one is operated by the community center staff. If there are opportunities for classes that, were previously held or new classes, I would just encourage anyone to contact the community center, Anthony Montes, and he will try to work to reopen with a class and offer it to the community. Do you all have any questions regarding opening the community center?
Good. I know there's a lot of people. I know there's a lot of people anxiously waiting for that to happen, and so I'm glad it's happening.
And one of the items they had been offering was the tax preparation as well. And of course, all of the programs that will be reinstituted or that are opening all have COVID safe plans in operation. For Grindstone Lake, we have been noticing a steady increase in the number of visitors to the lake. Seems like each day that it gets warmer, the numbers just continue to increase. And so what our plans are is for this upcoming weekend, for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of both ends of spring break, we plan on having a reservation system in place. It's a no fee, but there is a reservation required. And we'll have staff monitoring parking at both lakes. So the reservations are only for Grindstone, but we will be monitoring parking at both lakes because it seems like the use for both areas has been steadily increasing. And I would expect it, probably to be near capacity over spring break. We see a lot of visitors just dropping by just to look at the beach. It's a beautiful project. If y'all haven't stopped by there yet, I would recommend looking at it. There's a few things on the punch list that they need to complete, but it's ready for some 60-degree temperatures this next week.
So all the sand is in?
So the sand, all of the sand that was included in the permit and the design is in. I'm working with Eric to work with the department that manages the permit to evaluate and see if we are permitted or what we can do to add the additional sand. And so I'll continue to work with Eric until we get an answer or a resolution on that.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on Grindstone or Alto?
Except how very nice it looks. And that's a total change. You wouldn't even recognize it from the barren rock that was there before.
Looks good. So on the reservation system, are we putting that on social media or websites, all of that, radio?
Yes, sir. We have it on our social media, but we'll get the PSAs out on KRUI, and I'll work with Carrie to publish that as well. I've mentioned before, we get just a lot of phone calls in our office. We're like a mini chamber of commerce, and we've been notifying people as they call in that, we question them as they call what days they're expecting to come, because we're notifying them about the reservations as well. In relation to the lakes, I was planning on, or I have been preparing an RFQ for the concession services in the new building on Lakeshore Drive. And I've submitted it to staff in the village for input. The plan is to release that to the public after notifying you all and gathering additional either questions or seeing if y'all had any input. The plan is to operate that as a somewhat of a retail selling fishing license. That's going to be a requirement and we're going to add that to Grindstone as well, is to actually be a game and fish license vendor, offering tackle and bait, some food and drink items, and have a smaller rental fleet of vessels. We don't want it on the scale anywhere near Grindstone, but we want to have a few available as they did last year, but in a much better location. Are there any questions or input regarding that request for concession services?
Or objections to us putting it up?
None. And so that property, I haven't been inside of it yet that we purchased, but is it set up for, I know it had pizza ovens and all that stuff in it. Is all that gone?
So the commercial equipment is still in the building. The things that are missing, from my perspective, I've never operated a kitchen, but they'll need a fridge and a freezer. Other than that, there is a pizza oven in there. There's the 3-sink wash basins. There's the hoods.
Grease trap?
Yes, sir. Grease trap. All of that is still there. Even the layout of the building is still an open floor plan. It was used as a residence, but they performed temporary modifications to it to serve as a residence. Even the restrooms, they had temporarily modified them as a personal bathroom, but those items have been removed, and it's essentially ready to go to serve as a public restroom again.
Awesome.
Let's see.
Oh, Rodney?
Proceed with the update as well, that's on there for the sidewalk.
On sidewalks?
Oh, Rodney?
Yes, sir.
On that checklist too, are they in the midst of getting their food handlers
That fit right in.
licenses for those that'll work there?
That's the only thing I know how
And
to
an
do.
inspection of the kitchen and the rest. I mean, if they're going to, I don't know if they're going to do just packaged items or if they're really going to cook.
So to answer your question, that is part of the scope, is they have to comply with NMED and their requirements, which is the food handlers. I did include a clause in the agreement or the RFQ that if an individual is wanting to provide additional services outside the scope of work, that they will have to submit a complete operating plan regarding those additional services. So, I mean, potentially, there could be some sort of food service in there, if someone was, willing to do that. The building is set up for it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. On the Midtown sidewalks, yes, sir.
Mayor, I just wanted to check, did we rescind the order that restricted access to the parks to only Lincoln County?
Yes.
Okay.
It expired.
It did, okay. I didn't remember an expiration date, I just wanted to make sure we were clear.
Yes, what was that, 2 months ago, end of December?
Beginning of the year.
Yeah, January.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, sidewalks, Rod?
On the Midtown sidewalks, so we're a little over a week into the project. They have been moving very quickly. Last week, they demolished and relaid 300 linear feet of concrete. So they had gone from Times Square all the way up to the public restroom. This week, as of this morning, they had already demoed in front of the restroom, I apologize. They had gone all the way down to, gosh, I'm terrible with the business names. Where they sell corn and.
Yeah, I can't think of the A-frames we used to call them.
Yes, the A-frames. And they're going to, or they have demoed currently all the way up to the beginning of the Grace O'Malley's. That's where they're going to stop their demo, and their plan is to have all of that concrete poured by tomorrow. And I had tried to get them, if their schedule allowed, to try to be out of the project area completely by Thursday, as early in the day as possible, just to allow, additional time for shoppers to not have the interference of the barricades and whatnot. And so the plan for starting Thursday through spring break is to have all of the safety barricades and cones out of the project area and the sidewalks open for business.
Through the 19th?
Through the they'll be back, I believe, on the 23rd.
Okay.
And they didn't foresee any issues with trying to get out of the project area by Thursday. But it's going really well. Even in front of Times Square, where we anticipated potentially some issues with that, the heating system, that actually worked out great. They were able to disable that one circuit or that one area and continue to utilize that system in the rest of their property. So worked out really good.
Rodney, you said the 23rd. Does that tie in with Texas spring break?
So
Ours starts the 22nd.
So the majority of the Texas schools are the 15th through the 19th, the majority of the Texas colleges. There may be a few smaller colleges that are actually the following week. That coincides with the local spring breaks with the schools.
Because our local spring break for most in New Mexico starts the 22nd.
Right.
So they're going to be coming back during the middle of that. And I didn't know if that was going to be a hindrance to the shop owners if we've got spring break and then they're starting the construction again.
The largest spring breaks again will be this upcoming week. There are spring breaks on either end of it. I don't believe it's going to be anywhere near the foot traffic, but there will be some interference with the traffic on the sidewalks.
Counselor, they'll be on the east end of the district by then.
Okay.
And, they'll be working Monday to Thursday and then closing down Monday on Thursday. So it'll be open back up on Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Before Memorial Day,
Yes.
and before the summer, so it was really the best time that it could be done. It's getting done.
And
Mayor, counselors, if I'm not mistaken, Rodney, the progress that they're making, they're gonna be well out of there before Memorial Day. They have the project time to go up to the weekend before Memorial Day, which is usually the bike rally weekend. If I'm not mistaken, they're moving ahead so quick, they're gonna be out of here way before that.
that is true. And speaking with the contractor, he had estimated they could be even out as early as the May 1st.
Wow.
And
There's
unless they
nothing
run
like
it.
predicting construction work in Ruidoso, though.
Right. So we have run into some minor issues, which, just from my years here, I've known through other sidewalk projects in the area have gone. They did run into some moisture underneath the sidewalks, which to them was foreign, but we did work with the DOT to come up with some solutions how to for them to form the concrete. So they're adding a fabric between the compacted surface. They add a fabric, and then they're adding the wire mesh to those areas as well to help the concrete from buckling or crumbling in those areas. So again, considering those minor issues, we've not, so far, we haven't had any delays. Working with Matt Ingram with the Main Street Department and Josh, and we're trying to stay ahead and scout out the project ahead and try to foresee any issues that we can to try to keep any sort of delays on materials or issues with business to a minimum. We have had a couple of calls, but we've been able to work with the business owners, and so far it's worked out well.
Okay.
Mayor, yesterday we also attended the mayor's council meeting, and I believe it was Mayor Duckett had posed some questions on outdoor pools and recreation centers, including water parks.
Mm-hmm.
You want to update us on that and all that?
So it was during that meeting clarified that the public pools and outdoor public pools and outdoor water parks do fall under recreation under the red, yellow, and green. And so currently under the yellow, we would be able to operate at 33% of capacity at both the Whibbit and the public pool. And, I think if the village, keeps moving on that path of encouraging people to get vaccinated and tested, that, quite possibly by that time we could be in green or hopefully turquoise. And, those levels, it exponentially rises to the amount of numbers that we can accept. As far as lessons, our swim lessons that we host are limited to 10 persons. And so that's even something that, that we plan, unless we take a major step backwards, that we'll be able to offer to the community as well, unless there's any other, feedback or direction not to open the pool. But, each year we keep planning on, just like we did last year, we'll prepare the pool for opening and hope for the best, so.
Mayor, council, is there any objections to us proceeding forward to start planning?
Don't have any here, do y'all?
I
Nope.
just had a question, as a segue to what you just discussed with that meeting. Has there been any movement at all in terms of metrics of using those that are vaccinated in the community as opposed to just those that are positive?
Mayor, council, we brought those issues up, and they haven't wanted to change the criteria. Coming from the governor's office, they feel that the criteria that they've been utilizing has been effective and working. And those suggestions have been brought up.
Well, just for my edification, wasn't that criteria set forth before we even had vaccination?
Yes.
Oh, so now we're going to ignore that as a potential in terms of a metric, is that right?
It doesn't fit their narrative just yet.
The way things are going, give it a week and things will change.
And
What you brought it up, and what was explained to us is that we should also be encouraging people that have been vaccinated to continue getting tested as well. And that'll help our numbers.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. It's just that, but when you have, was it 5,900 on our last count, maybe higher now, that were actually vaccinated? Look at the population of this community.
No.
I mean, and you're suggesting that we're looking at the third largest, and I know this is beating a drum that's to deaf ears, and you're looking at a county that is the third size of any in the state and the fifth largest state in the union, with only about 4 or 5 centers of population. I fail to see the logic in any of this, medically speaking.
Well, and the CDC's even changed their recommendations for vaccinated people.
Well, yeah, they want you can congregate if you want to. They don't give you a number. You should wear your mask, social distancing, all the stuff that we've done anyway.
Well, no, they're saying if 2 people have had vaccinations, you can be in the same room, no social distancing, no mask anymore.
Oh, well, then they've even already.
No, that was
came out
today.
Yesterday.
Oh.
Today.
Yeah.
And
So
yet, do we not have internet in New Mexico, or is above 40 out of internet? I'm just questioning.
Well, I think unless you're glued to a national news program, which I try to abstain from, you don't hear some of those, but it takes a while for it to filter to us from the state level. And when we get the CDC guidelines, we get so much information to read, and sometimes it's contradictory, so we have to ask to try to get clarifications before we start passing out the information.
Well, you'd think Santa Fe would be one pushing very hard.
No.
Well, I think the thing they're
I
pushing
don't mean the
for
roundhouse, I just mean.
is immigrants,
Community.
the illegal kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll have to commend Tim and Ron for really working very well with Curative. We were able to get with Albertsons, the regional guy, and also Kevin, the manager, to set up a Curative site there and at Walmart in the Downs, as well as the other places that we've been doing. They really pushed that hard. He's working real well with, what's the guy's name?
Ron?
Ron? No, the guy with Curative.
Is Ron.
Oh, it is Ron.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe that's why I forgot about it. So,
Ron Sanders.
Ron Sanders. So they were very proactive. They tested, on Friday and Saturday, Tim had a goal of, because the preliminary numbers that we were seeing didn't look good, that we could possibly slip back into red. We'll know tomorrow, but I think without that efforts that Tim and these guys put into it to get close to 400 tested in 2 days, that we would definitely be in the red. So I think that we're going to, stay in the yellow. It looks positive for that, I think. Of course, there's always stuff that's thrown in there that we still aren't privy to. But those guys deserve, our appreciation for really working hard on that.
I would recommend to the businesses, especially those in the restaurant industry and all the others that are so tied to this yellow stage, to do what we did is we told everybody, and thanks for Tim calling me, Tim and Ron called me and said, hey, get the word out, let's get people tested. We told all of our staff, sign up now, go get tested while you're on the clock, and it only took them 20 minutes, half an hour, but allow your employees on the clock to go get tested. That's the incentive for the employee to get tested, and it helps keep those numbers down so that now you can keep your business open at a greater amount. It's a screwy metric. I will not argue that at all. What I keep telling everybody is we've always played games. Every one of us, since growing up as a little child, have played a game. All we're doing is playing the game with the rules that are set in front of us. But yeah, like Gary said, there's nothing regarding vaccinations.
No.
And then to get to the other metric where we have less than, 8 cases per 100,000 or something like that, we need to get down to one person. And our numbers have been above that. So that's what's going to get us to the green or the turquoise. But that we need to work on. But this one's an easy one. Play the game, get your testing done. In fact, what I would do if I was a business owner, especially in the restaurant industry, I'd have my employees go every 2 weeks and get tested, because that's how the cycle works, is every 2 weeks. Get them tested, otherwise you're going to potentially go back to pickup and delivery only.
Well, Tim and Ron are going for the record. I think they're on like number 14 or 15.
Well, I think the oral swabs are a big draw too.
Oh, those are so
Yeah.
easy.
Because, and I saw that listed and I was glad of it. I just don't know how much of the public at large mindset is that we're still regressing to the nasal swab. Because an oral swab is nothing. I mean.
It's so easy.
You do it yourself.
Well, it is a self-test.
Yeah, it's a self-test. But some of the people I talked to, they said, I'm not sticking anything up my nose. I said, no, this is one you stick it inside your mouth. Oh, okay, great, I'll go.
But just don't eat or drink or
I think 30
smoke
minutes before.
30 minutes before, right?
It was 20 minutes because a week ago when I went and got tested, I didn't realize that even drinking water, you can't have anything in your mouth for 20 minutes.
That's why they have you cough 3 times.
Yeah. Cough.
Mayor, just on the numbers, that I've seen that have been reported to me, the numbers being reported to Department of Health, it looks like we're right about 1,700 tests that have been conducted. And the positive cases that came back are right about 41. So if you divide the 41 by the 1,700, it gives you right about a 2.4%. So, that's kind of
a nice cushion.
the information that's provided to me. That's kind of where we're at. But there are adjustments that are made. Today is the reset day, so after they report today, then they do the calculations and they'll be informing us tomorrow where we're at.
Okay. Good. Good job.
Would that put us to green?
No, we got to get to, is it 22? positives in 14 days?
Yeah, the math comes out to about 22 positives.
22 people in 14 days, basically. Yeah, so we're over that. How many did you say? 41. So we're still over.
And given that we have spring break coming up with a lot of folks coming in, all the more, I like the idea of every 2 weeks, just drive by and get it done.
Exactly.
And keep the number down.
And the businesses still need to be proactive about washing, sanitizing, social distancing, wearing a mask, whether you want to or not, because we will have a lot of people coming in.
Well, if they don't believe it works, just look at the flu. I mean, we've had one of the lowest rates ever. I mean, just the influenza, not COVID. Well, that's what happens when you wash your hands
Yeah.
and cover your face.
No, pink eye's even down.
Concept, you know?
Mayor, if I may,
You may.
I just want to report that, this is really a group effort.
Sure.
Carrie, Kelly, Counselor Coughlin, everybody that gets out there and really pushed that last week, really helped out a lot. Jasmine, Samantha, Yvonne, they got on the phone and called every business on the business register.
The school system.
The school system got involved, helped out tremendously in getting out the word as well. And, it's just, it's great when the community all comes together. Justin was a big part of that as well. So, I just appreciate everybody that has gone. I know that every time that I see social media, I know that Susan takes any of our messages and always shares them. And, I know that Tracy does the same, so all that helps. It's just a community effort. So I just want to thank everybody for their cooperation in that. And we're going to be having some internal discussions. Diane wants to talk about opening the library as well. So we're going to be discussing that internally, and then hopefully within the next week or two, we can make some announcements on that.
Yeah, I'd like to get that open.
Rodney, is there anything else that we need to discuss in relation to your operation?
One last item is, so in order to stay on track with hiring of guards, we're going to initiate that process for the hiring of them and then offering training classes for the guard positions. And as we did in the past, our plan would, and we've already started to work with ENMU to offer the training through the college as part of the incentive program for those positions. And so we're going to offer a spring break class for local students for lifeguard training.
Oh, nice.
That would be all the.
Is the Whibbit going to have, is the lake, will it have enough water for the Whibbit?
I'm not, I can't answer that. I know that Eric, he did send out a plan of how they're manipulating the water supply in order to get more water into the lake, but if he's available, I'm sure he could answer that better than I could.
Okay. So, got anybody else, anything for Rodney?
Oh, just a quick question. I noticed today they were getting the infield ready at the ballpark. And I didn't know if there was, since you're connected with the school, is there any movement at all to really utilize the soccer fields yet or not?
So, as far as the schools go, the way I understand it, actually, I'm not certain. They've only used the soccer fields per se for soccer.
Right.
And we did have a meeting with them last week, but for whatever reason, soccer was not brought up. So,
Mayor, Councilor, in our reports in the near future here to come in the public health orders, it's my understanding that we're going to see some relaxing of those efforts. Is what they talked about. They haven't said exactly when or what.
Okay.
When it comes to other athletic association activities, that's going to be given some consideration in the near future. Isn't that the way you recall that?
yes. And you may be aware that currently they're offering or operating the fall programs, which is volleyball and
Right.
football. And I would expect if things continue that then they'll, the way I understand it is the following month would be the winter sports, which was basketball. And then after that, the following month, they would offer the baseball and softball. And, we have to kind of stay on schedule with as far as maintenance. We maintenance the fields every spring, and so we have to continue with those operations just much like the pool in order to prepare them for the summer. Even if no one was going to be on them, you have to maintain the turf.
I was just glad to see the horses off the field.
Me too.
Not so happy to see them in the soccer field, but oh well.
Right now, I believe youth sports outside of school, they can practice only, but they can't have games. So that's one of those inconsistencies between some of the stuff that's going on. But yeah, I would anticipate that that's probably going to be relaxed, and then they can start the games for the youth sports pretty soon.
Okay, anything else? Okay,
Thank you.
back to you, manager.
Mayor, next, we're gonna have Justin do his quarterly report.
Okay,
Let me sit here. Can I take off my mask? What's up, council, mayor? How's it going?
I don't know, have you calmed down?
I've calmed down.
Okay, you guys panties in what earlier, so.
It looks like
I get fired up.
It looks like his shirt says he's more relaxed.
Yeah, his shirt says I'm cool about it.
It was warm this morning. I was feeling very spring weather. No, I've always wanted to say what up, council, mayor, so I thought
Okay.
I'd throw that out there. Just-
Party on there,
All right.
Garth.
Let me share this screen real quick.
Mayor, just, for the timing, there was a public hearing scheduled at 2:00. So, that was publicized in the Metropolitan Redevelopment.
At 2?
What was that, Ralph?
Mayor, members of the council, we have 5 minutes until the public hearing was scheduled for the Metropolitan Redistrict Plan.
Talk fast, Justin.
Okay, I'm gonna fly
Well,
through
can we
this.
turn it on and then they can finish up here in Justin and,
Yes.
Okay.
Whatever you'd like.
Go ahead. Okay. Just looking at the overall metrics for the village, this is through the end of December. Because I'm reporting on last quarter, we are only down 1.8%. So our numbers look really healthy. And honestly, if you compare it to previous years, we actually beat every previous year except for last year, which we've had some tremendous gains. So I'd say in terms of health overall, we're doing quite well, especially when I hear, speaking to colleagues across the state who have been impacted tremendously. Our community health in terms of lodging tax collections has been reasonable. I'll skip some of this stuff. Just getting into some of our metrics, just like a quick peek. You can see we're down quite a bit overall on our website traffic. Where I do see a lot of positivity is in our new sessions. That's one reason why I think we're down. A lot of these people that are road tripping coming into us, we're seeing a ton of traffic from places that we don't traditionally see traffic from, and a lot of increase in traffic from some of those markets that we haven't just dominated in. One interesting one here is Phoenix. They're up 96% in total sessions, and they're up 171% in new sessions. So a market that we've just started to tap into. Those people are starting to reach out and thinking about road tripping to us, which is great. You see increases in Houston and San Antonio as well. There obviously are losses across the board just as a result of the roller coaster ride we've been on overall. Pretty fair makeup across the board in terms of who we are servicing. You see our age demographic 25 to 65 plus is fairly consistent, and even that 55 to 65 plus is our larger demos. So when you see that coming through, it's good. It means we're spreading our message out appropriately across all channels to the right people, and we're hitting a lot of different demos. Pretty even breakup between male and female as well. You see right there, 2020 to 2021, it's darn near right down the middle. So we're getting a good reach across the board. Overall, you'll see kind of our organic search is up in this particular month or this particular period time frame, which again, to me, it means we've done a lot of the right things to lay the roots down to get people to recognize us. That's why we're seeing those new sessions. Hopefully that continues, and we'll continue to drive those people. And then as post-pandemic, we'll gain those people as long-term tourists in our community, like a lot of the other people who've fallen in love with us.
Time out.
Time out.
On organic search?
Yes, sir.
So that is people that are looking for hiking and then it takes them to us, or explain that real quick.
So organic search means, yes, that they stumble across us in some way. So what you're referring to is SEM, so search engine marketing, or SEO, where we actually have stuff on our website that people are that they're looking for, and it's driving our message to them through Google or whatever other platform they're utilizing.
So when it says paid search, is that marketing and advertising efforts that we've put out?
That is, but that's specific to digital content that can be tracked via the IP addresses that we're targeting. So that'd be social media, different stuff like that. And we have 159. I don't know if we want to pause.
Well, what we can do is when people come on, I'll just tell them that we're finishing up your report.
Perfect.
And they can listen. So when they come on, if we're in for public input at 2:00, it'll be just a slight delay while our tourism director finishes his presentation.
Awesome. And I'll try to move through this quickly. I did attach the visit widget report so that you could see, and it's actually for that particular time period, it was up compared to the previous quarter. We have asked Visit Widget to give us a year-over-year analysis comparison, so they're going to be providing that to us, and they're instituting that hopefully within the coming months, so we can get a better perspective how we're performing year-over-year. But again, I mean, I don't ever know how to turn this report sideways, so I apologize about that, and that's actually something they're working for us too. But but a lot of the cities and stuff we're seeing who are using that visit widget, it's been a great tool for them to plan. A lot of advertising we've been doing has not been driving people specifically to us or call to action, what I would say call to action advertising. It's been this type of messaging that you see on the screen up here, driving the COVID safe practices, trying to do the responsible thing. We cut out a lot of our marketing budget overall just because we felt like to be responsible, we needed to help people learn COVID safe practices and instruct our guests on the proper way to interact within our community so that we could stay open and healthy. You can see our overall impressions are down about 9%. Engagements are up 41.6%. So that means that Kelly has done a really good job building an audience of people that are really actively engaging with us and that are interested with us. So I would rather see a lot of engagement than a lot of impressions. So even though impressions are down, that's okay. Post clicks are down, but that's largely due to because we don't have a large call to action campaign going. So it's not like, hey, book now for a reservation at Grindstone Lake or whatever those things may be. We just didn't have a lot of that going on because we were really running that COVID safe messaging. You can see some of the spikes, and if you see these spikes, which I'm kind of hovering on the screen here, those are that October snow day, massive spike in engagement. Kelly posted an ad, and it's all organic. Same thing in December. You see that again, and we have some of that, the pictures down here where that reinforces that. So October 27th, massive spike, you see 80,000 engagements. So people absolutely love it when it snows up here. We're there, as I joke, the Texas, Mexican, and now the Arizona Alps. They run to us when we get snow and they love it. So just some of the other stuff that's been going on Twitter, YouTube, another thing that's not on here. So we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok that we're active on. We're the only city in the state that's utilizing TikTok, and so they were really excited about that. And we have a pretty robust video campaign just because that's something that we have a really fun time doing. So the TikTok's been a great way to get a new audience that we can reach out to. You can see kind of the way that we shifted some of our messaging, and this is on the Pinterest. And I really love the way that Alden has done the creative here, where you've got the floating messaging in the background, provides some text, textual context to this, and it's just a great aesthetic. We are working with New Mexico Tourism Department on our strategizing calendar for social media, and so this is just kind of some of the stuff that we've worked with them, and we can change the messaging on the fly, but that was a part of their recovery readiness package, and we took advantage of it. I'll skip through some of this. The top video ad for October through December, you would think that would be a ski ad or something like that in a normal year, but of course it was our Rio So Safe message that we were able to work with our local first responders to be able to shoot. Got some of the top landing page stuff here. And I'll just hop through this. One of the things I want to point out on this page right here, so this is our website. So the top pages on our website, you see Redos webcam, it's up there every single time. It represents roughly a little over a quarter of our overall page views. And that's one of the reasons why I requested that Lodgers Tax fund another webcam. I think that the more eyeballs we can get on our community, that's just a really good way to keep people engaged with our website content.
Where do you want to put it?
You know, I'd like to put it at Grindstone. There's some internet issues at Grindstone right now, so I think what might be the better option is waiting until the fibers run to the bottom of the dam down there, from what I've been told, and then we could do a direct shot up so that I could put it on top of the dam looking out, because I don't think the boathouse is going to be feasible anytime soon. I know that's outrageous to run that fiber in. So I think that that's one option, but I would be open. I thought Spencer Theater is another place that I thought might be a really cool place to have a webcam out looking over. But I just think there's a lot of different venues that we could kind of explore, but Grindstone would be my next big push. This kind of gets into some of the VOR stuff, so we don't need to get into that specifically, since it's not direct tourism, and this is more the VOR administration side of stuff. But quite a few of the things that Kelly and Carrie have been working on for Village of Ruidoso Facebook social page, including the testing blitz. A lot of this messaging is I guess synchronized with what we're doing on the tourism side. So it's just as important that the local community as well as our tourists kind of get some of the similar messaging. So it's been very, very similar. The new website pages, the Village Volume podcast has gone up, which has been a great thing. Matt and Jazz have really worked on that, bringing in local business owners, speaking to them, and that's kind of taken on its own dimension there. The Outdoor Hour, that's another great one that exists and lives on currently lives on the Parks and Rec page. And then just some of the stuff that Carrie has worked on with municipal PR is located here. And I'm sorry I'm going so quick. I'm trying to be mindful of time.
No, you're fine. You got a lot of good stuff here.
Okay. This is a really interesting tool that Carrie and the agency have invested in. It allows them to more accurately monitor the media mentions and stuff like that. And they added it's in, I think it's called Cision, and they added an add-on to it, which was quite expensive from what I understand, but it provides a lot of value. And what I like about it kind of gives you the value of your coverage and can show you the different points where you've had publicity hit or mentions in the press, et cetera, and gives you the overall value of what that coverage means to the community. And it can, gives you a really good level of how that can be monetized. Measures overall sentiment, what people felt about messaging and mentions, on TV or in press or different areas like that. Kind of gives you gives you a breakdown exactly of what that looks like. So what sectors you're hitting in and where that PR is hitting. And then,
So for example, like you look in October, roughly the 15th of 2020, you see a high spike in red, which is negative. And so that's probably when we ask people to wear a mask or something. Is that what?
Yeah,
It's just feedback on social medias?
Well, this would actually be measuring directly in press. So that could have been us running, our right whenever they started mentioning that people can no longer visit New Mexico, the quarantine was being reinforced right in that time frame. So if that hit the El Paso news, then they're going to measure that as a negative response based on feedback they see on their website that coincides with that press release or information.
Mr. Mayor, Jason, were you surprised, just to help me, that the vast majority of this is fairly neutral, neither plus nor negative?
Some of that is because it's hard for them to measure without having really direct, it's difficult for them to measure that, I think, is why a lot of it is neutral. And some of it is just these press releases getting out there. So they're seeing a lot of eyeballs on it, but there may not be a ton of engagement with it directly. And I think that's why I think Carrie might be able to answer that a little bit more accurately than I can, just because they work in the tool day to day. But that would be my estimation is why.
So how are the negatives handled?
Well, I mean, it's really, that's where the PR, it lives on other people's platforms. So when it comes into our platform, like on social media with Facebook and that stuff, we can address the issues, try to subside the guests or the tourists or whatever. And when it lives on someone else's platform, it's difficult to control the message. That's why getting ahead, like you guys have done such a great job with getting the press releases out, being timely about it, making sure we're as informed as possible, or informing our tourists as much as possible, because the only way to really get a handle on it once it's out there, or, the only way to really get a handle on it is get the right information out there at the right time, and try to control the narrative.
Because I know we worked real hard, like on snow removal, getting the sidewalks clean, but we handled a lot of negative traffic on comments on Ski Apache
Yes.
that we have no control over, so we're getting our eyes beat shut on this all the time. And so I just wonder how we're handling those. I know that we're passing those messages along to the powers that be, but is that where any of this type of stuff
This right
shows up?
here is kind of specific to TV, and if you go to the last page, it says media coverage October, December. I think that's page 48 of 66. This is more regarding like TV, the Albuquerque Journal. So this is your true, your true press type stuff. Whereas some of the stuff that we're fielding complaints in locally, whatever it may be in regards to, we can handle those internally because that's coming into our social media outlets where we can address the issues. This is really measuring, this tool is specific to measuring, how the press is being impacted out on TV, radio, any news outlets, stuff like that. I'll breeze through the creative report. It's not as robust as it usually is. Again, with this year, it's been really focused on COVID safe practices, but we have had a couple of ads that we've, had commitments to that we've ran, like New Mexico Magazine, stuff like that. But a lot of it's been, this outdoor out of home, which is the billboard down at the Y. It's just primarily this COVID safe messaging, how we're kind of using our digital assets when we did that photo shoot and video shoot, and how we're utilizing those. I'd like to move on to one other thing, but I would like to, if you have any questions that I can answer before I move on to this one other topic.
Justin, I'm hearing from some people, they're concerned because Texas has opened up no mask, no blah, 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 blah. And your report is from the last quarter. Are we still in our marketing advising people that they need to wear a mask in New Mexico?
Yes, we're going to continue to follow the guidelines of the state of New Mexico, and we're going to continue to try to control the way that our guests interact with our community and set expectations up front. So, our big mission now, and that was an immediate concern as soon as we saw the press release from Governor Abbott, is how do we control the narrative to ensure that our community doesn't have a negative impact from Texas tourism. If they just come in saying we're not wearing a mask anymore, we feel like we can have an honest conversation with our tourists through our marketing and our efforts to say, hey, here's the expectation. And in fact, this morning before I came over here, I edited 4 different videos focused on educating our guests about the mask requirements in our community, and about how they can interact safely with our community, but still come here and enjoy it and have a positive economic impact for our lodgers and our retailers. So it is something that we're going to continue to address, and we will do our absolute best to make sure that messaging is first and foremost. We obviously cannot control the flood of who comes into our community, but we can help them interact in a way that is positive for them and for us.
Go ahead, Susan.
Justin, do you work with Matt, with the RMA to say, hey, we're yellow, we want to continue yellow, we want to go on, but with the influx coming in, working together, getting the businesses to say, wear a mask. We were just in Tucson, and, everything's open, but everybody wears a mask. Mm-hmm. And so it's, I know I've heard some businesses say, well, I want that person to walk in. I don't want to get them mad. But the important thing is being safe. And if they really want to come into my store, wear a mask.
Absolutely. So to answer your question, unpack it really quickly, just this, working with Matt has been an integral part, RMA, Redevelopment Midtown Association, has been an integral part of communicating with that particular district. It goes beyond that too. It's working with the chamber, making sure they're helping circulate a lot of the messaging. I've got a distro list of almost 1,000 people that we're circulating. So we're trying to tap them as many times as possible with that positive reinforcement messaging. From a retailer standpoint, it's difficult when you have, a $12 an hour staffer in there that's maybe 19 years old and is intimidated to try to speak up. So I can speak from that aspect of it, but I think from our standpoint of what we've been saying as a community, as a tourism department, Chamber of Commerce, Midtown Association, and Village, is we've had a very hey, it's a positive thing. It's going to help the community. Let's make sure we mask up. Let's make sure you have your signs up, have hand sanitizer available. And I feel like for the most part that is being done quite well in town. And again, I do think that we just have to continue to drive that message for our Texas tourists who are now going to be no mask requirements in their state. There are, I remembered seeing an article, I think there's something like 13 states now that have lifted the mask requirements. So I think we're going to start to see a little bit of that happening. And don't quote me on that number. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but there's quite a few states that have lifted the mask requirement. So I think we're just going to have to keep driving that messages in the market, and it's going to have to coincide with our marketing efforts that, we are a masks required state. We do want you to travel here safely. Any other questions for me before I move on to the next topic? And I'll be brief in that as well.
No, I think you got a ton of great information, very analytical, and can really pinpoint certain things that you're moving in directions. And I'll be glad when we can actually start doing some actual marketing.
I'm glad we get to be here. I was stoked. I asked Sam, I was like, hey, I get to come down. All right, I'll do it. I'm wearing my
Moving slowly. So take your stokedness and let's move to design and planning. I see you got an interesting idea here.
Okay, so I've got an idea, and this is going to be proposed to my Lodgers Tax Board on Thursday. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I'm going to take it to Lodgers Tax Board for recommendation if they see fit, and then I will bring it back to y'all for final approval if it seems like it's a good fit for the community. This is called Street Sounds, Music for Your Main Street. This is implemented in hundreds of communities across the U.S. and Canada. This company is really interesting, and one of the things I like about them, a couple things I like about them, they're cost affordable, so it's not a high dollar system. It's scalable, and it's a wireless system. The only thing it requires is an AC outlet, which we happen to have on every single light pole in Midtown. The idea is to drive more vibrant energy in your community, especially if it's your pedestrian consumer district. And what this is, the system as you see it, it's a speaker system that mounts on a light pole, and you've got two speakers that point at a downward angle towards the street. They say to put them no more than 150 feet apart because each speaker can only travel about 75 feet. And he even said, that 75 feet is right when you're getting to the threshold of the distance that it can travel. These systems are interesting because you can have a central location where you have a computer set up that's running licensed music. We obviously don't want to do anything bootleg or illegal, but you have licensed music, costs about $30 a month. And the central location could either be where we host the Rito, so webcam, and then you'd have a little tower on the building, and then each of these speaker systems is a repeater that repeats down the way to each other. So as long as they are less than 150 feet or 150 feet apart or less, they're going to be able to transmit that music. So a couple things I like about it is we'd have licensed music in Midtown, so really add to the ambiance and the atmosphere of Midtown. The other thing I like about it is that we can introduce commercials and advertisements for village-specific stuff. So whether it's a PSA like, hey, be fire aware during our peak season for fire, or it's something like, hey, we've got the marathon coming up, don't forget to sign up, or reservations are required at Grindstone Lake on the weekends during the summer. We can implement those commercials directly into the system and put it on a commercial carousel that would play throughout the day at random intervals. So it gives us a lot of flexibility to do that type of stuff. The music can be curated any way you want. They have obviously it's all consumer friendly, so folks that you're not going to have swear words and stuff like that. It's family friendly music, but you can say we want 20% country and we want this, new hits, whatever it may be. We can curate it specific to that based on percentages, or you can pick a specific playlist. In the past on system that I've used, the percentages seem to be more effective, and then you can add songs if you want other songs on there that maybe you're not hearing. But they're really flexible, great systems. The other thing I like about it is that if there was a situation where we had to do an emergency evacuation of Midtown, say a gas leak like the old mill, how it blew up, this is something you could hop on, immediately pick up the intercom and do something like that to hit all of Midtown. So it gives us a lot of uses there. Another addition to the system that I think is really cool and interesting is it has a little remote system. So let's say we did decide to implement the Wild West shootout in Midtown. You could mic up the people that were participating in the shootout, and then you could have an interaction that all of Midtown would be able to hear. Or when we did the pumpkin roll, that's another thing where you can utilize this system. During the holidays, of course, we could play Christmas music over the Christmas holiday. So from Thanksgiving through Christmas, we could play, kid-friendly Halloween music during October. So this system is a really awesome system that gives us a lot of flexibility to increase the atmosphere of our town, but have a really low impact, and it's not going to cost us a lot to get it all set up and everything. The total budget that I have calculated for this system, and it's if we did every single light pole from Carrizo all the way down to Country Club, would cost $65,000. That would be all of the speakers. That would be the mobile unit. It would be the main unit. It also accounts for the cost for a year of subscription to actually have the music and everything, as well as a computer system, and then some miscellaneous hardware that we may end up needing. This is something that Parks and Rec, it takes about 15 minutes per pole to set these up, is the average time that it takes to set up per pole. So it would be something that they could set up, but we do have 110 at every single pole with an extra outlet. So even with the Christmas ornament set up, this is something that we could put on the poles and set up relatively quickly and easily.
And we'll need to make sure that these are poles that we own.
Yes, so I think that we need to make sure that we get permissions on, and that's where I don't know if it's
I know all the ones that are have the wood around them. We own those, but I'm not so sure about all the others down to Carrizo Canyon. So
okay.
I don't know about those, but that's something you can check into. And
absolutely.
And were you doing some a little bit of subliminal marketing on a Wild West shootout? Did I just hear that?
Yeah, I'll just talk on that really quick.
Jason, just a quick question. On the laptop network management, who would that fall under? Who would be the responsible party?
So Ski Apache has a very similar system to this. It's there, and so they use that on the mountain. Honestly, you set it up on the computer, and then it's really just it self-operates with exception of the implementation of commercials. It'd be like the webcam. I took over the webcam whenever I came in as tourism director, and I just, if it goes down, I troubleshoot it, I maintain it myself. That's actually how I ended up officing out of that office, was because I was down there before we switched it over, troubleshooting the webcam, and decided to rent an office in there. But it would be under me. I would be comfortable doing it. Another option for this, though, we do have the webcam there at where I office out of, so we already have the internet for that webcam. That's why I recommend it could go there. Another option is the Wingfield House. That's another place where it could potentially go, as long as there's somewhere that it's going to be within the same distance of the poles that we're setting those up on. That would be the biggest consideration for it. So. But I would be happy to administer that. It's not a heavy workload. It's really you set it and forget it kind of a deal, unless you're changing out commercials and stuff like that.
And that price that you gave as an estimate included what they call the mobile master as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So it includes everything in the entire system, including the miscellaneous, the 65, I actually adjusted up about a little over $4,000 just to account for miscellaneous stuff. So a computer, if we had to do miscellaneous hardware and stuff like that. But that would include, the system itself is about $61,000 for everything that we could possibly want with it. And that's every single Matt and I counted every single pole in Midtown. I can't remember the total figure now, but when I sent off the quote, it was for every single one of those poles in Midtown from Carrizo to Country Club. Now, the Municipal magazine actually wrote an article on this in July of 2021 and said that this was an innovative, inexpensive, and creative way to spruce up your Midtown district, and that they show that it has a tremendous positive impact on the economic stimulation of a district like the Main Street district. So it's got a lot of potential. I think it could really add to the atmosphere and value of our community, and it's a low threshold cost.
Could just stream KRUI so we get more listeners to Monday Morning with the Mayor.
Well, and I think we can run it on this too, so.
Yeah.
And I think
for the licensing for
we'll need to,
music.
we'll need to check on the carriage range on the speakers.
Yep.
Because as a former violator of the noise ordinance, I'm pretty keenly aware of it. Okay, thank you, sir. I think we're going to need to move on. Thank you very much for all the information.
Thank you for having me today.
I hope the people that joined us for the public hearing are not too upset. We ran a little long here, so we'll move on to our public hearings. In compliance with the Attorney General's Office mandate regarding the Open Meetings Act during COVID-19 state of emergency, the governing body will accept public input via email at clerk@ruidoso-nm.gov. Public comments must be submitted no later than 2 hours prior to the meeting and will be distributed to the governing body members for review. Mr. Clerk?
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, on the public hearing that we'll be entering, we did not receive any public input. Community Development Director Samantha Mendez may have received or is going to have public input during the public hearing presentation.
Okay, so we're going to move, since the council gave me the ability to move the items around, we'll go ahead and move to item number 5, the Metropolitan Redevelopment Area, the MRA. Is that where we're at now, ma'am? Okay, take it away, ma'am. Samantha.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, council members. Today we have a public hearing for our Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Plan and Designation Report. What this report will help us is to tie goals that were set forth in the comprehensive plan update from 2019 that outlines the steps to achieve the community's vision through goals, policies, and measurable actions. This plan directly relates to that to help us maintain and enhance the village's small town feel by continuing our efforts to revitalize and develop the Midtown, encouraging property maintenance, increasing the walkability around town, as well as identifying the plan's guiding principles and implementing them through this MRA plan. In order to qualify as a metropolitan redevelopment area, conditions need to exist of blight, vacant properties, and neglect, and we have that all throughout the Suttereth corridor. And so we had a advisory committee formed. We met twice, which they helped us outline the boundary to include even a few off streets from Suttereth, Mescalero Trail, as well as Rio and portions of Wingfield. Yes, and so we were able to come together as an advisory committee prior to having a town hall meeting. And after the town hall meeting, we then presented it during our workforce advisory board meeting and again to the planning commission. And here today, we have our third public hearing before the council. With us, we have Phyllis Taylor with Site Southwest, and she has a presentation prepared, and she'll be screen sharing to elaborate a little bit more and discuss key themes and other analysis that are inside the report.
Thank you, Samantha. I'm going to share my screen, I hope.
You're good.
Good. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And I think some of you may have seen at least pieces of this before because it's similar to the presentations that we've given to at least the last couple of public hearings to the Housing Advisory Committee and also Planning and Zoning, but we'll go through it again. There's two things that we're going to talk about. The first is a designation report, and that's where we identified the conditions that support designation, and that'll be the first, the designation will be the first action item. The second is the MRA plan itself, and that identifies kind of focus areas and projects that would be carried out under this program. So just to kind of revisit what the MRA is, the State Metropolitan Redevelopment Act allows local governments to help businesses and property owners directly in areas that need some sort of intervention. You have to show that the area has demonstrated need. You have to document that, and that's what the designation report does. You identify the area where you're going to be able to offer help, and we had an initial boundary, as Samantha talked about, and then we had, through our public meetings and hearings, some adjustments to that boundary to pick up some additional properties. And then in the MRA plan, we identify the types of projects that the village would like to be involved in. And the goal is really to get private investment. So projects that we think will stimulate private investment. And Samantha talked to you about the meetings that we held, and we've had very good participation, I would say, from Midtown Association, from property owners and businesses. So the purpose of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Area is really to allow the village to help owners improve their buildings, open up the possibility for grants and low interest loans in the event that there's a funding source. It helps, one of the things that the village would be interested in doing is a business incubator. We'll talk about that a little later. That could help nurture startup businesses. And then through this effort, expand your local tax base and offer more types of businesses so you can keep dollars in Ruidoso. This project, or the projects, would promote economic development in Midtown, provide opportunities for property owners to rehab or redevelop their properties. And then we identified several conditions that we think could benefit from public investments, and we've identified some of those. The plan itself focuses on implementation and funding, and the goal is to really get private investment. So looking at what cities typically do, you can acquire, own, lease, improve, or sell properties. So it allows the village to acquire properties for redevelopment. You can carry out projects as a village or help private sector carry out projects. In Main Street areas, the Main Street program periodically has funding for facade improvements. There are other types of public improvements. We talked about sidewalks and some of the vehicular and pedestrian circulation as an example. The village could build or help get built new buildings, help with parking, wayfinding. Public-private partnerships are an important part of this. So it works a little bit like your local Economic Development Act, where it enables the village to actively participate with private business in a public-private partnership. There are also provisions in the act for issuing bonds or setting up a tax increment financing district if you decide you want to do those things at some point in the future. Just looking at examples of what other cities have done, the old Albuquerque High project, which is near my office in Albuquerque, was a building that was abandoned and went through a series of different ownerships over probably 30 years. The city was able to acquire the historic campus and attract a developer, and that project has been redeveloped now for many years, and there's housing, there's retail, there's some office space in there. They have a kind of a business incubator for tech businesses, and it's improved the area where it's located through both building improvements and streetscape improvements. The Hotel Clovis Lofts in Clovis is another project that's now it had been also kind of an abandoned building that the city of Clovis took over. It's got housing, retail office in it as well. The Main Street renovation in Las Cruces is where there was a big public improvement that's made it more attractive for private business to locate there. Farmington and Carlsbad, as well as other cities in the state, have instituted facade improvement programs. Las Vegas built a park on the Gallinas River, and Silver City's invested in its old theater. So there's a real variety of projects you can do, and we identified some that would get you started here. This is the district. It's a long, narrow corridor along Sutterth. It goes from the circle to the west of Meacham all the way to the intersection with US 70. And the areas that we expanded were to kind of pick up a little bit bigger area around Midtown, and also to pick up a bigger area at the east end by US 70. So this was based on input from property owners that were interested. Getting back to the designation report itself, there are criteria in the state's Metropolitan Redevelopment Act that there has to be one or more of these conditions in place to justify designation of a redevelopment area. So we looked, we had a site visit and looked at the entire corridor, and we identified the items highlighted in red as being applicable to this particular district. So there's some deteriorated or deteriorating structures. There's some site improvements that would help the area. Most redevelopment areas have a diversity of ownership, and this one is no exception, including quite a few owners who are outside of Lincoln County or out of state. And that just makes it more difficult to do a coordinated redevelopment effort without the help of the local government. And then we identified businesses that had closed. And, you know, we started this before COVID was really in full swing, and it hit right as we were working on this, but some of those businesses had been closed for years. So we identified existing conditions, and these are just some examples of buildings that are deteriorated that have an opportunity to be spruced up. Some of them are empty, so be redeveloped. I know that at least one of the properties in the photos here has been purchased and is being renovated, and that's the idea, is to do things that make it attractive for private investors to make improvements. We identified deteriorated site conditions, so that would include weeds or crumbling parking lots, and also just sidewalks needing help throughout the district. And I know you have at least one project you're going to be talking about on this agenda to try to rectify those public improvements. And then just vacant and closed businesses. Some of these businesses have been for sale for a few years. Some of them are not for sale, but they're not going businesses at this point. And just looking at where these conditions exist along the corridor, we mapped the properties. So we've got vacant properties identified. We've got deteriorated buildings and sites identified. So, you know, the missing sidewalks is big. There's a few large vacant properties. And then scattered all along the corridor, there are buildings that are deteriorated or sites that have the weeds and crumbling parking lots and things like that that we showed you pictures of. So this is the west side of the corridor. This is the east side. And you can see all along the corridor, both sides, there's a scattering of buildings and areas that don't have sidewalks. Then we also looked at what was for rent or for sale, and there's quite a few properties that way too. And again, they're scattered along the corridor. So that's kind of sums up what we found that's in the designation report and identifies the justification for the designation. Then the next step, once you've identified the area, is to look at what sorts of redevelopment projects you'd be interested in. And again, we worked with staff and property owners, the Midtown Association, and had discussions about what those projects should look like. We kind of came up with a vision statement for the study area, and just it's important as a retail district that's true to the history of the village and is a place where both visitors and longtime residents would gather for a variety of activities. The types of projects that sort of emerged are ones that have to do with access and mobility. So that's vehicular, bike, pedestrian movement through the area, placemaking and community spaces, just the character and design of the area, which has, you know, its own special character that's important to why it's attractive to people, and then economic vitality. And we identified short, medium, and long-term projects. So under access and mobility, the shorter-term projects were focusing on sidewalk repairs on Sutterth, and then Center Street is a pretty good north-south route to get people from where you have public parking to Sutterth, the Midtown area, and then continue south and get to the river. So that seemed like a good cross spine, so to speak, that needs some work. Then in the medium term, look at wayfinding and signage that can help people maneuver through the area and know where things are and where they can park and so on. Then for placemaking and community space, and I see there's a typo here, sorry. We had short-term projects, some of which are already ongoing. The Wingfield Park renovation is one important one. The Midtown District's mural program is another that already has several murals in place. Wingfield House History Center, or, you know, some sort of community space at the Wingfield House is another one. The radio station, I know it's already there, but it's a good location to anchor the west end of the corridor. And then over the medium to long term, looking at ongoing improvements to Sutterth. For character and design, short term, a facade improvement program, I think would be a good help to the private businesses. And we had the plan reviewed by State Main Street and the Historic Preservation Division, and they pointed out to us that they fund projects, but they're only in the Main Street district. So that would be Midtown, where the facade improvement program funded by Main Street would happen. But if the village wanted to fund something like that from another source, you could consider moving it outside the Main Street district. Another idea was sign improvement program, you know, small loans or grants to help businesses with the signs that meet your design goals. And then dealing with vacant sites and buildings. And the village has had some success with its Clean and Lean program, just continuing that to get people to fix up their properties, like the lodge here. So far, there's been success at getting the private owners to make those changes. If you get to the point, and many towns have in New Mexico, where that's not happening, it is, you do have the potential to purchase property at market rates. you can't use eminent domain in this case, but the village could acquire properties and then make them available for redevelopment if you want to do that. We did not identify any specific projects for that in this case, but it's an option in the future. And then you do have buildings that are of state, local, and possibly national register significance along the corridor. And there's some information in the document that came from the Historic Preservation Division about how to kind of look after those historic properties that are important to the character of the district. For economic vitality in the short term, the village is looking at updating ordinances. So one of the ones that'll be happening soon is update to the village chapter 54. And we, both in both the comprehensive plan and the MRA plan, there are potential uses identified along Sutterth, allowing a better mix of uses. Some specific things would be to allow housing, also small-scale manufacturing, perhaps in conjunction with retail storefront. So those will be looked at in the ordinance update over the next year. Then for medium term, or things that'll take a little longer, is looking at a business incubator at the Horton complex, and also continuing to try to attract residential development along this corridor. And the ordinance or revisions will make that easier for developers to do, but there's also the potential to actively recruit developers of housing. And that's something that the businesses were interested in for their own employees, as well as to kind of beef up people that are right on the corridor to be customers for their businesses. And one thing about the MRA plan is this can be any type of housing that you help with, because it's been identified as a need. And that's it for the projects. Do you have any questions? And I will say, I mean, Samantha can speak to this, but I've seen some comments come in that are specific to the sidewalks along Sutterth, and just kind of indicated to us that people are interested in that, and it may end up being more than just the short-term project. It may end up in Midtown. It may end up being, over time, looking at sidewalks all along that corridor.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would refrain from this time of asking questions. It is a public hearing. This is just the introductory to the public hearing.
Yep, and then so we will, so the public will still have the chance to ask questions, correct?
Right now, Mayor, you could open up for the public to ask questions if you choose to.
Right, that's what I was going to do. Okay, thank you very much for that. If we can, we'll go ahead and open up the public portion of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Area. And so is there anyone that would like to comment, ask a question at this time? Jeffrey, can you see anybody with their hand up? Anybody trying to unmute?
Is there anything in the chat box?
Have you looked in the chat box? I really can't believe that,
This guy down at the bottom, Drew, he's unmuted. I don't know if he wants to say something.
is there anyone that would like to speak? Okay, I think it's been pretty well covered, but at this point, then we'll close out the public portion of the comment period, and then pass it to the council if they had any last questions.
I got one question.
Go right ahead, Councilor Eby.
In the vision statement, it stated that Sutterth was the backbone of the spine of Ruidoso, but it also mentioned in there that it expressed the history through its architecture, and also you had in one section the Historical Society. So is that suggesting that any type of further, say, renovations or new construction along that corridor or that specified area would need to, say, be conscious of the architecture that's existing or go through some sort of architectural committee that might be formed, or what is that? It's just a question. I don't know what.
You're muted, Phyllis.
I think there's a pretty diverse set of architectural styles along that corridor. The things that are most interesting about it are just, it's got sort of a Western feel to it, and it's relatively small scale. Through Midtown especially, things are right at the street. So we're not suggesting that you have any, an architectural review committee or anything like that along the corridor. The historic preservation aspects of it more have to do with looking at the buildings that have significance to your history and protecting those, not so much about new buildings. And especially as you move towards US 70, there's some vacant properties and opportunities to do things that are more new looking. So it varies along the corridor, and in the plan, we did identify kind of nodes. So you've got the Wingfield House that's a historic resource at the western end. You've got the Midtown District, which has its own character. And there is an area just to the east of the Midtown District where there's some interest in redevelopment. And then as you move east, everything gets a little bit newer. So it's pretty diverse. I think the history has more to do with preserving the things that are important to your history than in regulating what's new.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other comments or questions from Phyllis? No? Sounds pretty good to me. I don't know about y'all. At this point, yes, sir?
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, we were requesting to move to the two regular items, number 1 and 2, following this closing of the public hearing and going straight to the regular item number 1 and number 2. And this is all coinciding with the same agenda.
Okay, so now then we would like to move to regular item number 1. And then after we finish with 1, go to 2, and then we can move back to the public comment period for the liquor.
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, would move back to the manager's report. We have some remaining presentations and reports from other presenters.
Okay, so the 2 o'clock timetable was only germane to the item number 5.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, we've closed the public input portion of the MRA, item number 5, and moved to regular items. Regular item number 1 is discussion and possible action on adoption of Resolution 2021-13, Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Designation, making certain findings and determinations pursuant to the Metropolitan Redevelopment Code and designating the Village of Ruidoso Metropolitan Redevelopment Area. Okay, do we have any more further discussion? I don't think we do.
I'd just say, I think Samantha and Phyllis have done a wonderful job on this. Phyllis was very, very knowledgeable about Ruidoso. Unlike some other presentations we've gotten from other people where they don't know the names of the streets and things, you can tell Phyllis has really worked hard on this to come up with stuff. And the pictures remind me of some of those places that I drive by every day and just kind of block out of my mind about, when I first heard Tim talk about being a blighted area, it's like, what? And then you start seeing some of this and you start thinking about it, and it's true. There's a number of properties that have sat for the entire time I've been here, and there's been no action on them. And then others where properties have been purchased and still sit. So I think this is great. That I'm excited at what the possibilities are looking at these pictures and the plans that are in here. I think this is great.
So do you want to make a motion, Mr. Excited?
Well, if I must, I will. I'll go ahead and make the motion to adopt Resolution 2021-13, Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Designation, making certain findings and determinations pursuant to the Metropolitan Redevelopment Code and designating the Village of Ruidoso Metropolitan Redevelopment Area.
Second.
Final discussion? Okay, roll call, please, sir.
Counselor Coughlin.
Aye.
Counselor Jackson.
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius.
Aye.
Counselor Letterman.
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Item number 2, discussion and possible action on adoption of Resolution 2021-14, a resolution making certain findings and determinations pursuant to the New Mexico Metropolitan Redevelopment Code and approving the Village of Ruidoso Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Plan.
And this is the best part because now we're getting money to do the plan. So I'll go ahead and make a motion if nobody objects to adopt Resolution 2021-14, a resolution making certain findings and determinations pursuant to the New Mexico Metropolitan Redevelopment Code and approving the Village of Ruidoso Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Plan.
Second.
Okay, any final discussion? Roll call, please, sir.
Counselor Coughlin.
Aye.
Counselor Jackson. Counselor Cornelius.
Aye.
Counselor Letterman.
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Samantha, for all your hard work on this.
Yes.
I know it's a team, but you can go back and talk to them. Thank you.
Okay, now we will move back to the village manager had to step out. He had an important phone call to take. So we will move back to, you want to do the strategic plan, Ron, or do we need to wait?
Mayor Crawford, I think we would wait on that one, and if we could just move on to the report from the Magistrate Court building. The presenters are on.
Okay, so we're looking at Jason Clack, Scott Gribitz, and Audrey Hukari.
And Mayor Crawford, members of the council, I believe we also have some members of the architectural team that was part of the project. So I'll let Jason introduce himself and the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members, for having us back today. Yes, I have some good news to share with you all. First of all, we have hired a new project manager on our end for the AOC to help manage these new building projects that we're doing. His name is Rick McHale, and we have him on here with us today. Just so you have another point of contact as we start moving forward with these projects more in earnest and actually start getting into the designs and construction. The big news is that we have finalized the contract with our new architect firm. And the architect firm is SMPC Architecture. And we have David Hassard with us from the firm. He is the principal emeritus, and he will lead the design efforts on the projects. So I'll have David introduce himself and talk a little bit about where we're going from here.
Okay. Again, my name is David Hassard. I'm Principal Emeritus at SMPC Architects, which is a designation given to people who are former principals and are sort of on their way to retirement. So that is my current position. And so I've been working in architecture for about 45 years. So I think I'm well versed in most building types, and our firm has been in existence for 77 years, and we've seen and done a lot of various kinds of building projects. I have to admit, though, that this is my first magistrate court projects, and I'm really looking forward to it. I always like to work on new and interesting projects that I've not done before. So this is will be fun. I have done a lot of projects that involved a high degree of security, similar to the court system. And I think that these are going to be fun projects. So that's my introduction, and I guess you have to forgive me because, as you mentioned, we were just hired on, and I don't know what the mayor and village council knows about the project, so I don't really know where to start. So someone else would be good if they did a lead-in, and I can pick up on any technical issues.
Okay. Thank you, David. Yeah, I can kind of follow up on that. I think where we're going to go from here is we have contacted our construction manager at risk, which is Bradbury Stam. So they are kind of an intermediary between us and the architect, and they help us manage the project. So now that we have SMPC under contract, we are going to set up some meetings with Bradbury Stam and the various municipalities that we're working on these projects with to go over the designs that we already have and where we're going with those designs, and take a look at the budgets and make sure that we get all the priorities into the designs and also in the budget. So that'll be our next step. So we'll be contacting everyone from Ruidoso who's interested in attending those meetings and setting up a meeting, hopefully in the next week or so, to kind of kick things off and really get into the details. So with that, we can answer any questions if anybody has any questions about where things stand right now.
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, I had a question for Jason. We did receive, I guess you would say it was just a preliminary proposed project schedule. Is that still in place, or can you go ahead and elaborate to the council exactly where you're at on your schedule?
Yes, we're still trying to stick to that schedule that was sent out. There weren't any, we didn't have any changes to that, so that's what we're still working under.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yes, I can. I'll have to pull that schedule up, and Ron has a copy of it. But let me pull that up and give you those exact dates that we had kind of outlined as our goals. We had planned to start the design development on February 22nd. So we're kind of behind on that, although now that SMPC is under contract, we have sent the designs that we already have to them for review so that they can start working on the design development phase. And we plan to complete the design development phase by April 23rd. Then after that, we'll have to review the budget with the design development documents and approve the design developments. And hopefully we're shooting for April 30th to have that done. And we'll plan on beginning the construction documents May 3rd and hopefully complete those by July 2nd. And hopefully get all the permits and everything by July 9th based on those construction documents. And that will give us a groundbreaking date of July 12th. So that's what we're shooting for, to actually break ground and start construction. And if everything goes according to plan with the construction, we're hoping to have the facility substantially completed by December 15th.
Will we be able to get a timeline on that, just your critical path, so we can kind of keep up with that? I think that 6 month is pretty high goal, because we do have rain, and hopefully we'll have a lot of rain during that period, and different things that will come up in weather. So will we be able to have that put out sometime soon?
Yes, Ron has a copy of that schedule, so I'll let him distribute that to you all, and we'll certainly keep everybody updated if there are any adjustments needed as we move forward with things.
Okay.
But now that we have everybody under contract, we will plan on having more regular meetings to discuss any of the, any sort of delays and needed adjustments to that schedule.
Mayor,
Thank you. Yes, sir, Tim.
it's been a continued concern of ours that, we issued the financing on this. And, our first.
Back in somehow. It kicked me off.
Okay, I think Mr. Townsend could mute his, please. There you go. Go back. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry about that. It's been a continued concern of ours on the delays that, the financing that was issued, we have 2 months of interest payments there. But if you go past on the construction, the dates that it's due, is the administrative office, the court's going to pick up those additional, the lease for that time that we don't have certificate of occupancy?
That's a good question. We'd have to discuss that and see if we have any ability to, I guess, prepay on any of our lease payments before we occupy. Certainly that's not contemplated under the lease agreement, but that's something that we may be able to work out if there's any, substantial delays, because we understand, the situation that you all are facing with those payments on the loan.
So that sounds different than what you said before. It sounded like before you guys were saying that the lease payments would commence and you would pick them up even though you're not occupying the building. So, if you're in total control of the project and we've continually been pushed back and no cause of our own, we can't be held responsible for those payments.
Certainly, that's not a decision that I can make on my own, but I'll have to talk to our director about that. And, if we're not occupying the new facility, we're still going to be paying lease at our current facility as well, so we have to take that into consideration. But it is something definitely that we can see if we can do it. That's all I can say right now. I can't make a firm commitment to that.
Well, we went ahead with the funding because we were told we're ready to go from the AOC. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, nope, hold on. So we've gone ahead and we've gotten the funding. We've got the interest that's accumulating. And then through no fault of our own, the AOC backed off and redid everything with the architect and whatnot. And then we're left hanging. So, I think there really needs to be some consideration there, strong consideration there. For basically saying, yeah, we're ready to go ahead and get your funding, which we did, and then now all of a sudden, you guys are backing off on moving forward with the project.
I understand the concerns with the interest payments, definitely. And maybe there's something, we can work out to cover those interest payments.
I don't think we're concerned with the interest payments. We anticipated that there's going to be a couple of months of interest payments there. But, once the lease, if we go past that date that the lease starts, we need that income coming in to cover the debt. And, the schedule in my mind, is continually moved back. To me, I think we've lost 3 or 4 months at least, And, the schedule that's being presented seems like a very aggressive schedule. Maybe you all can pull it off, but it seems like, I don't see it.
So can we schedule something with your director to have these discussions? Zoom to Zoom or face to face or whatever?
Yes, I think that would be a good idea. I'll get with him on a good time to set up a meeting, probably after the legislative session, because he's pretty tied up with that right now. But yes, we'll definitely set something up that we can try and work this out. We tried to set this aggressive schedule because we knew that there was a delay due to us switching architects at the beginning of this project. But we also did it to hopefully save some costs. So maybe with those cost savings that we've built in with this new RFP and architect, maybe we can come up with the money to go ahead and make some early lease payments before we occupy. But yeah, we'll set up a meeting to discuss that further.
Okay. Anything else?
Mayor, there is on the, one of the project updates on the manager's report it's for the Magistrate Court building, and I did put the tentative schedule on there also, but I can get the schedule out to each of the governing body also.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, I hate to put you on the spot, not you, but I can't remember your name, I'm sorry.
Dave, what is it?
I hate to put you on the spot, but I think we've posed this question 3 or 4 different times and haven't got a clear answer. So I just wanted it on the record that this issue is being brought up, and it was brought up in December as well.
This needs to be cleared.
Okay, so we're clear on that? We understood that? Okay. Was there anything else? Okay. All right, well, we appreciate it. We're looking forward to getting it moving. And hopefully with good weather and everything, that that 6-month plan will come to fruition. So thank you, Ron. Anything else on that?
All on that. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, we appreciate
Thank you, Mayor.
everybody that came in on that.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I've kind of lost everyone's picture. I didn't know what happened to everybody. So anyway, anybody that came in and contributed, the new architectural firm and everything, we're looking forward to it. And we appreciate it, and we'll be at your service because we like to keep things moving along pretty quick. So thank you very much.
Mayor, and real quick, Judy did inform me that with the way that the loan is structured, we're good till June. So that gives us some additional time to work with.
Till June.
Yes. 2022.
2022, okay.
Perfect.
Okay. So was that a Rosanna Anadana moment?
She just came in and
Okay. So we, sounds like we're all good. Okay, so we'll move on from that. And do you want to move to the strategic plan, or do you want to move to Souter Miller?
Mayor, just real quick, I think it's still a valid point that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
That issue. But, she was just bringing it up and saying, that she's looked at the schedule and we're good till June. So, if they do finish by December and occupy it by January, that should meet it. But even at that, I still think that's pretty aggressive.
Right. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to which item, Manager?
Mayor, I believe, going back, I just want to give a brief update that we have presented the 2021-2022 strategic plan as part of my report. And what we have done is we've gone back and we've inserted the comments that the council had in each one of the tactical plans into that and updated it. So, as you read through it, if you feel that there's something that needs to be changed or something that wasn't included as you look at your notes or whatnot, let us know. But, I wanted to, personally thank Jasmine and Samantha for taking the lead on actually compiling all this information from the directors and then putting it into this document. While we were conducting the strategic planning session, Samantha and Jasmine were taking notes on any recommendations that the mayor and council gave, and we made sure we incorporated that into the document.
Okay, very well.
Do you have any questions on that? Ron and I have already started the evaluation process and working this into those tactical plans, the goals and objectives into their evaluations for all departments. So we are proceeding forward with implementation.
Okay, I think it's a good program. A lot of work into it, and I think it's going to pay off. So once you started the strategic plans, I mean, I think I can tell there's been a tremendous amount of work on this. Does anybody else have any comments,
The
questions?
concern I always have with strategic plans is that now they're done, they're printed, they don't collect dust. So just from all the departments, just keep this, you know, in front of them and keep referring to it because we get distracted. There's tons of stuff that comes at us daily. You know, we go into work and we have a plan to get X done, and then there's 40 other things that hit us that day, and then we get distracted. So we have to keep our vision and keep on task for it.
Well, and that's why he's moving into tactical plans after this, which is where our rubber's going to meet the road. Did I say that right? Where rubber meets the road. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
And just real briefly on that, Mayor, you know, in the next 3 months, all the goals and objectives from the tactical plans move into the evaluations for the directors, and then the directors incorporate that into their evaluations as an action plan for the next 3 months for their subordinates, and so on and so forth. So that we guarantee that, you know, these items are going to be continuously worked on until they're accomplished.
And then he's going to have that little Edwin Locke patch that puts on the side, you know, that's the one that you have the plan that there, and you work the system all the way around. And so they pretty much thought of everything on here. So we'll see. I'm excited about it. It's kind of like the choo-choo train that's just starting up. It feels like to me it's really going to be humming along.
Mayor, our goal is to have a 4-hour State of the Village next year.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think I've got something going that day.
Yeah, I think you would too, like a nap. So.
I just want to thank all the directors and everybody that helped work on this, Mayor and Council. I want to thank you all personally for, you know, spending 2 days going through this. And I know that's not easy, but it helps give us a good direction moving forward, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you came up with a lot of wonderful stuff. I really like it. Okay.
Mayor and Council, that concludes my report, unless there's something specific you want us to report on.
Well, do we have Souder Miller that needs to do it, and then we can?
Oops, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's correct. We still have one.
We'll break then we'll take a quick break, and then we'll get back on. Will that work for everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so who do we have from Souder Miller?
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Jody Garcia. I'm the Water Resources Technical Sector Director for Souder Miller and Associates, which basically means I manage all of the production engineers for water and sewer for Souder Miller. Also with me is Todd Finney, who is Senior Vice President for Souder Miller. He's here from.
Hello, Todd.
Hello, Mayor and Council, Mr. Manager. Jody's got this thing covered, but I sure miss seeing you folks in person. So glad to see your smiling faces there on Zoom, and thanks for the chance for Jody to present this information to you. It's a very important topic, and Jody's got a good presentation. So I'll hush up now and let him roll on to it. But miss seeing you folks.
All right, thank you, Todd.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I put together a presentation. Can y'all see that okay?
There's a hard copy of the presentation on the desk.
Okay.
And can y'all see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I just want to take this time to thank you for the opportunity. My first involvement with the Village of Ruidoso was on the recent water and sewer project. I was only tangentially involved, but we certainly look forward to continuing to build our relationship with the village. And I want to thank Karen Gutierrez for her help putting this together. So the agenda for this presentation, I'm basically going to go over causes and mitigation measures for change orders during construction, and then we'll get into amendments for engineering. I've kind of color-coded the slides with the causes in red and the mitigation measures in green. I won't go too in depth on any of this. It's something I could talk for hours about, but I recognize that we're waiting on a bathroom break for me to finish. So When I did the dry run on this, I had to cut myself off at 20 minutes. So I'm going to make sure I don't go that long this time. I will be going quickly. And so I'll ask that if you have any questions or if I say something that doesn't make sense to you, please let me know as we go. Let's see. So common causes for change orders on the construction side. I'm not going to go through and read this list because what you'll see is these red topics are going to serve as the primer for the mitigation measures that are going to be on the next few slides. But they are arranged basically in order that we see them, kind of in terms of frequency. And so I will get going on mitigation measures. So one common reason for change orders on the construction side is unforeseen conditions on the job site. So utility conflicts, underground conditions that aren't known beforehand. And so things that the engineer and the owner can do to mitigate those conditions is to make sure that the utility companies respond fully to a design locate. We've run into a lot of trouble with utility companies signing off on a design locate and then saying that they marked the utilities and then find out later that they didn't. We go through a full design and then find out during construction that there were a bunch of utilities that weren't picked up on the survey. The one thing to keep in mind, though, is to consider the relative cost of comprehensive subsurface utility engineering. Those reports, I'm not sure how often the village has done them, but they can be considerably expensive. We've seen projects where the SUE report runs into the hundreds of thousands. And so it may not actually be the best way to mitigate utility conflicts. I say that because one of the ways that we work on utility conflicts for smaller communities is we will generally just build in we will build in some contingency in the construction contract for the contractor to do potholing, to locate some of the utilities that we're not sure about. That's actually can be quite a bit cheaper than doing a full-blown SUE because you don't have to deal with the mobilization of the equipment, and you don't have to have anybody prepare a report, but you end up with the information that allows you to avoid that conflict cost. Another thing is, be sure to consider costly conditions during design. So some of those might be shallow groundwater, rock excavation, difficult soils, any irregular traffic control or permitting requirements. So another thing that we see that causes change orders on the construction side is an inexperienced, unproductive, or understaffed contractor. And so some things that the owner can do with the engineer's help is to require and thoroughly vet prior references. You can explicitly include some portion of the award of the construction based on prior experience. This isn't used very often, but it is allowed by the procurement code. You don't have to go on cost of the loan. Early on, you should require a detailed list of staff, equipment, and a detailed schedule with the bid submittal so that you can make sure that they're properly geared up for the project at hand. And then what you want to do too, early on in the project, as quickly as possible, is identify any gaps between the information that they provided and the actual field performance. So if you had a contractor say they were going to be installing 2,000 feet a day of water line and they're only doing about 500 feet of water line, you're going to want to bring that to someone's attention as soon as possible to make sure that you avoid a future claim. Another cause for change orders that we see pretty often is change of plans by the owner. Some things that you can do to try to mitigate that is to make sure that you go through a thorough planning project. I had a small community where we had recommended a 6-inch water line because we were going to do we were going to provide some measure of fire protection for the system, and they started building the pipe, and it was at that point that somebody said we only need a 2-inch water line, and so making sure that you understand what your alternatives are and making sure that you're headed in the right direction. I know the village doesn't really have these kinds of problems, but it does happen more often than I would expect. Thorough review of the plans and specs by critical and knowledgeable staff. And one thing that I would mention there is to consider including the operations staff in the design review. Very often we'll see owners whose operations staff doesn't get involved until it's time to start a project up, and they hadn't looked at the design, and you end up with change orders as a result of changes that they see at that point. And then review and approval of construction documents by all stakeholders is important. If you're going to have folks that are going to be stuck with the project later, they should be involved in the design review. This is a common change order we see, inadequate budget. So you get to the bid phase, you open bids, and you find out that you don't have enough budget, and so you end up change ordering stuff out at the last minute. That can sometimes increase costs overall. You want to make sure you set your budget conservatively to avoid redesign once the costs are known. And then there are some change orders are caused on the construction side by engineering. I've seen other engineering firms do this. We don't make these kinds of mistakes, but you want to make sure that the information you use for the design is accurate and current. We've had owners who want to use a 10-year-old survey, and then we get to construction and find out that things had changed, and that can obviously be expensive once the contractor's on board. You want to ensure that your engineer has a comprehensive QA/QC policy. You want to make sure that the engineer isn't the only one that's looked at his set of plans, that they have a comprehensive way to vet those deliverables. You want to make sure that the engineering project schedule is adequate. A lot of mistakes on the engineering side get made because the engineer's in a hurry. And then one thing to consider is adding contractor review. If you've got some contracting partners that you work with on a regular basis, they may be willing to review construction plans and may have ideas or changes, or may notice things that maybe your ordinary review team doesn't catch. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you get thorough review of construction documents. For most of our projects with smaller communities, we'll actually walk through an alignment for a water line, as an example, to make sure to relay the design concepts, to make sure that the owner's on the same page. Another reason that we see for construction change orders is poor communication between parties, where a contractor and an owner make a change out in the field and don't include the engineer. That can sometimes cause additional costs. One of the things that we would recommend is to make sure that type of communication doesn't occur directly between the engineer and between the owner and contractor, without the engineer being involved. And then another thing you could do is to hold regular project progress meetings, and to make sure to document those meetings in writing with minutes that get approved by all of the parties. Value engineering. So not all change orders are necessarily bad, right? Sometimes you'll advertise a project, get under construction, and then a contractor has an idea how you can save some money. And so it'd be good to have a conversation with the stakeholders, including the engineers, and consider asking about value engineering from the bidders during the bidding process. And then I have a list of things that are kind of general mitigation strategies. And so the first one is to be open and upfront with bidders regarding uncertainties, and make sure that those details go into the pre-bid minutes. So like if you have a water line that you don't know where it is, if you bring that up during the pre-bid conference and you make sure that it makes it into the minutes, it's going to be much harder for that contractor to claim that he didn't know that he was going to have to do some exploratory digging on that infrastructure. Yeah, so the change orders are not necessarily a bad thing. I mentioned that earlier. It is not uncommon for some change order mitigation to cost more than the change itself. So, you know, using our SUE example again, if you spend $100,000 on an SUE to avoid adding some bends to a water line, that mitigation may actually cost more than what it would have cost if you would have just encountered that change in the field. And then it's important to mention that often some mitigation measures will only help you prepare for a cost ahead of time, not necessarily to eliminate a cost. So using our SUE example, they will find all of those utilities for you, but you will still have to mitigate them. So you're spending money to make sure you know about it ahead of time, but you're not necessarily saving money on a change order that may come up during construction. And then, you know, if you are faced in a situation where you are being presented with a change order, you're going to want to make sure that your engineer reviews what's being claimed in terms of the price of that change order. You're going to want to make sure that that price is fair. You know, most engineers, we have a database of, you know, what common construction items should cost, and you can push back on cost up to and including the point where most construction contracts have a force account provision where if you can't agree on a price for a change, you can actually have a contractor do that by time and materials and pay them, you know, basically that direct cost plus some small markup. One thing to note there is I have seen contractors where once you're under force account, it probably hasn't gone too well to get to that point. And so you'll want to make sure that they're not bringing a bunch of unnecessary equipment to the site just to basically pad that price that you're going to have to pay them. And so if you do end up going the force account a direction, which should be used as a last resort, basically, you're going to want to make sure you agree on a plan of construction before they start that work. And then one last thing, you're going to want to make sure that the contractor holds the utility companies accountable. So the law that governs 811, it doesn't provide any provisions for the owner or the engineer to hold utility companies accountable. It only provides a provision for the utility company to be held liable by the contractor. So if there's a phone line that wasn't marked by the utility and it ends up causing a delay for the contractor needs to take that up with the phone company, but you will see that a lot of contractors won't try to hold the utility companies accountable. It's much easier for them to just claim a change order under their existing contract with the owner. And so you're going to want to make sure that those lines are stay clear. So that's really all I had on the construction side of stuff. I'm going to go into engineering next. Does anybody have any questions about any of that?
No, sir. I think we're good.
Good points.
Okay, thank you. And so similarly to the construction side, I have a list of common causes for amendments on engineering contracts. Again, so change of plans by the owner. You can avoid changes during the design process by making sure you go through a thorough planning process to evaluate alternative solutions. You're going to want to make sure to do a thorough review of the plans and specs by critical and knowledgeable staff to make sure that the project is what you expect it to be. And you're going to want to make sure to review and approve construction documents by all the stakeholders. And so, you know, I mentioned operators before. That's one that gets overlooked sometimes. One other cause for amendments is a poorly defined project scope. Usually, for most engineering contracts, the engineer prepares the scope of work. But if you're preparing it, you're going to want to ensure that the scope is well defined, and then subsequent to that, you're going to want to make sure that the engineer's scope of services that goes into the contract matches what you had anticipated. I would say you're going to not want to rush the engineering contract development. You want to make sure to take time to have all the stakeholders review the scope of work to make sure you're getting what you expect. And then I would say when you're reviewing a project scope for an engineer, you're going to want to pay attention to the exclusions and assumptions to make sure that everything is appropriate and that it doesn't exclude something that you thought was included. Some other things that happen that cause amendments on the engineering side, changes to who will review the project, or additional coordination and or slow or delayed reviews, which could drive urgencies in subsequent tasks or phases. So you're going to want to define the stakeholders before the contract is executed and make sure that their review and coordination is included at the major milestones. And then you're going to want to try to stick to that review schedule if you can. Revisions late in the project can cause an amendment. So, back when we were putting pen on Mylar to put together a set of plans, changes were a lot less frequent. Now that we're doing computer-aided drafting, changes have become a part of normal course of engineering. But there are some changes that are harder to incorporate than others. For example, usually for a 30% design on a water line, we'll try to finalize the alignment and the horizontal location of where that water line will go. And then in the 60%, we'll put together a profile that's associated with that alignment. So if you don't finalize the alignment during 30% and you review the 60% submittal, and you want to make a change to the alignment, there's a lot more work that's involved with that. And so you're going to want to make sure to pay attention to what's being finalized with each submittal and try to get your reviewers to stick to that. Unknown or inaccurate field conditions sometimes require redesign. You're going to want to ensure that the utility coordination is included in the engineer scope. And then the survey should also include the horizontal location of utilities that get marked. And then you're going to want to make sure that they're following up with utilities to make sure that they're marked before they go out and survey. It happens more often than not that utilities don't all get marked, even though they should be by law. And then regulatory changes during design. This is pretty rare, but I did have a project where I had an owner hired an engineer to design a treatment plant, and they went all the way through final design on their treatment plant, and the regulations on the outfall were in the process of being changed, and that didn't get accounted for in the design. So that engineer got fired, and I ended up finishing that project for them. So you're just going to want to make sure that your engineer understands the regulatory requirements and make sure that they're included in the scope. And then construction delays. So construction delays can not only be expensive on the construction side, but many of the engineering services during construction are tied to the construction duration, right? So if you're doing biweekly progress meetings and monthly progress payments, the work that the engineer has to do will increase as that construction duration increases. And so you're going to want to make sure you try to minimize those. One way that you might be able to avoid additional engineering is to actually do a stop work order to resolve a delay if you have one. Inexperienced contractors. So I touched on this during the construction portion, and I won't go through those mitigation measures again, but I will say that, a lot of the costs associated with inexperienced contractors are borne by the engineer. And then some contractors will use the RFI process to negative effect. And so one of the ways that you can avoid that is make sure that your engineer uses a documented procedure for RFI receipt, that they keep a log, and that they identify and reject any redundant RFIs, and that they respond to all the RFIs in a timely manner, but shouldn't hesitate to request additional clarification when it's necessary to be able to answer an RFI. And then if it does seem like they're using RFI as a weapon, it's important to directly engage them, as soon as you notice that it seems like that's where they're headed. And then just a couple of general change order mitigation strategies on the engineering side. You want to make sure, like I said earlier, to allow time for contract development. Very often, tasks will get missed if you're trying to hurry to put a contract together. And then I would actually recommend a meeting between the owner and the engineer once the engineer's prepared a scope of work for a given project. Go over the stakeholders, what's expected at the reviews, and go over any exclusions or assumptions. And so that is my presentation. Sorry, I know I said a lot in that small amount of time, so I would welcome any questions that you have.
I mean, it's a lot of good information and whatnot, but just most recently on the request for information, can you give me an example of some RFIs that a contractor would be throwing out?
So I've seen a contractor down south where they are sending RFIs we had a water line design, and typically on our plan sets, we will show a bend with an angle, but we won't necessarily show a fitting. And we had a contractor that was submitting an RFI for each bend that we showed to confirm what fitting would be used. And so after about 5 or 6 of those, we ended up we had a call with that contractor and said, look, fittings are incidental to this water line construction. You can stop sending us these RFIs. If you do want to make a claim because you think there are more fittings required than what you bid on, I'm going to need you to give me a comprehensive list of the fittings you anticipated, and then at the end of the project, we'll do a comprehensive list of fittings that were installed, and we can agree. Then we can talk about a change order at that point. And so after that, I didn't get any more fittings RFIs. So that's kind of an obscure example, but I have seen contractors try to undermine an owner's confidence in an engineer by submitting RFIs. And I'm not sure if you guys see this in Ruidoso, but we see it in small communities all the time where, the contractor has a bad contractor. Good contractors generally will try to approach a project from a teaming perspective, but less good contractors may try to drive a wedge between the owner and the engineer to try to justify further costs during the project. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I can kind of see some of them now. I know it's a strategy with some contractors to add on and their profit margins on those things. So I think you pointed out a tremendous amount of those things. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Mayor and Council, our intent is to take these recommendations and then, work them into our project managers, practices on how they're, working with the projects and developing the scopes, working with engineers, managing the contracts so that we can help reduce that risk. But, Mayor, I wanted to bring up that I've known Jody for quite some time, and I appreciate you, Jody, helping us out with this. But if you guys ever enter a golf tournament and you need a sandbagger,
he's the guy.
Yeah.
He's the sandbagger.
That's right. I was disappointed that I wasn't going to get to come up to Ruidoso and go play while I was there.
Yeah, you got that right. Jody's got that game down.
He's got some skills.
And I would just like to thank my colleague Jody for putting that together, and again for the village for letting us present. And if there's any way follow-up questions or comments that you have, you can certainly reach out to Jody on that topic or me at any time.
Okay. Well, thank you guys very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it as well.
Okay. Does that conclude the manager's report?
Mayor, I just want to apologize. I've been dealing with some HR issues, so I've been having to step in and out, so I just wanted to apologize to y'all for that.
No, we understand. It was, I think, to do with the fire at the RV park, the little RV at the Cherokee Park. We had a fire out off 70, and some of our policemen had to bust in and pull the lady out. So, anyway, so I think everything turned out pretty good. We're still working on a few things. So does that conclude your manager's report?
Yes, Mayor.
So I think this would be an appropriate time that we take like a 20-minute break. If that doesn't upset too many people's apple carts, we'll take a break and then we'll do a little birthday celebration.
When have you
Mayor,
about upsetting apple carts?
Mayor, if you don't mind, we do have Phoebe on and, you know, is Phoebe on? Karen?
Yeah, I can see her on there.
I'm here, I'm here.
Can we address your item, Mayor, so?
Yeah,
why I
I
was-
know you guys have been needing a break, so I'm open to whatever the mayor and the council, whatever you want.
Which one is that? I mean, we keep making exceptions, we might as well forget about it. What?
Number 6.
6 under.
Task order number 6? Okay, we'll go to task order number 6. Ron, are you going to be able to keep me straight? Okay, we'll move to item number 6.
Yes, Mayor, we'll move to item number 6.
Then we'll take the break. Discussion and possible action on amendment number 1 for task order number RFP 2020-009P-02 with high watermark LLC to provide professional environmental compliance, construction management, and inspection services relating to the FEMA DR 1783 bridges in the amount of $31,478.05, including gross receipts tax. Hello, Phoebe.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council Village Manager. How you doing?
We're doing fine. Okay, and I think, Karen, were you going to start off this discussion?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Yes, we presenting a proposed amendment for Phoebe's task order in support of the Gabion failure that happened at Close Road Bridge. As I went over in the previous meeting, that this is a large project, and a large project definition by FEMA is that all eligible costs are reimbursable. So in this discussion, I also included a supporting email from Department of Homeland Security in reference to the requested funding for this additional funding, I should say, for Close Road. So with that, I was going to allow Phoebe to go ahead and go into further detail other than what I did on the previous presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate taking time before your break here to hear this item on your agenda. I think it's fitting that we're having this after your discussion and presentation about change orders. This change order resulted in actually an unforeseen circumstance regarding the rain event in July of 2020. And I understand that, we don't, know when it's going to rain or when things are going to fail. I do want to say that, the Gabion event, that I think one of the silver linings of this whole situation is that we had a large rain event when the contractor was still engaged, as well as the engineer still engaged. So we were able to collectively, the team, to address this particular issue with the Gabion failure. And so I do also want to take some onus on this. I know there's been discussion back and forth of how things progressed and how things happened, and us trying to expedite and keep the process moving forward. I'm usually devil's in the details, and so we did continue to work forward, and we did propose a change order at a previous council meeting. And I think communications got crossed where there was already submittals of invoices, and I thought I took into account those. And so I apologize for that confusion on our end as well, and just trying to keep the project moving forward, thinking that we could complete it expeditiously because there was actually still material in the bottom of the drainage. And I know, talking with the village manager, as well as Adam and Karen, and as well as the federal agencies, we wanted to make sure that we accommodate and address those issues with the gabions and the soil in the bottom of the drainage, and that, you know, we didn't have another major event that would mobilize that to then become a reportable incident underneath our permits that we had with the Army Corps of Engineers and New Mexico Environmental Department. So I know there was a lot of moving pieces and we kept moving forward. One of the things I also wanted to bring up is, I know the village manager did request a proposal to do a third-party examination of what happened during the gabion failure. I did reach out to a geotech company, and we did put together some numbers. But what happened was...
You froze up there, Phoebe.
Oh, can you see me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, apologize for that. What happened in the evolution as we continue to address this issue, instead of doing a third-party full-blown reassessment on the engineering and ZIA's option for resolving the issue, we actually already had enough documentation based upon our observations and our in-field reviews, that we had sufficient documentation that we provided to the legal counsel, that we were able to move forward and support a resolution on this without going to a third party, doing a secondary overview on the engineering design and the options, the alternatives that ZIA was presenting. So we were able to actually mitigate costs based upon the work that we had already done on our observation. But again, I do want to take some responsibility in just the communication getting crossed on this. A couple of costs had been invoiced already previous months. And when I did the task order, I had assumed that those invoices were already taken into account. And so it's basically that $31,000. So I do want to, take responsibility for that miscommunication with myself and the village as well. Just not being clear when we started our calculation for what that amendment that was done in early fall. So I just want to apologize for that as well.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any comments or questions of Phoebe? Nope. Okay. Anything else on that? Nope, we're good. Okay, thank you, Phoebe.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Phoebe.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mayor and councilors. I appreciate all your support. I've been listening in on your discussions, and I'm very happy to hear all the proactive projects moving forward, as well as all the frustrations with COVID, as well as the way that the village of Ruidoso has been moving forward and taking care of its community members.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, on item number 6, do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve amendment number 1 for task order RFP 2020-009P-02 with High Watermark LLC to provide professional environmental compliance, construction management, and inspection services related to the FEMA DR 1783 bridges in the amount of $31,478.05, including gross receipts tax.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion?
Question, Karen said that this is reimbursable, through the FEMA, but it's reimbursable out of that set amount that we already received from FEMA, correct? Is there going to be additional funding?
No, this is additional. Isn't that right, Karen?
Yes, sir. Councilor Coughlin and Mayor, the way that works is when we did get an approval for the version 1 of Close Road Bridge, they did set a dollar amount, but as they did when you do, I should say, going back like we did on Eagle Bridge, when they wrap up and close out the project and we get audited, that's when they account for all the funding or all the expenses to make sure that they're eligible and that you have backup documentation for them. So that's exactly how this will be approached as well. As we close up Close Road Bridge and we go to the desk, what they call a desk audit, they will account for all that. And as long as we have the appropriate backup documentation for everything, we will be reimbursed for that.
Okay, so this isn't like the sewer line project where we have a cap?
Oh, no, sir, not at all. This is what, the large projects, like I said, they're established by eligible expenses.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other question? Roll call, please, sir.
Counselor Jackson?
Aye.
Counselor Letterman?
Aye.
Counselor Eby?
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius?
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we move that approves now, then we'll take a break, a 20-minute break roughly, so about 4:15. We'll meet back, okay? So thank you, Phoebe, thank you, everyone. So
Thank you.
we are, time out.